What? Break it down. What? Hey guys, how you doing today? Not much happened today, honestly. Like, I got a good night's sleep. I slept in, right? Made today's video. Did a little bit of searching around for things for the show today. And here we are. And namaste to you. I think one of the things that I'm starting to notice in the sort of cultural zeitgeist, let's call it. Hey Major, how you doing, bud? Good to see you. Our leaders are starting to scramble. I think scramble is the word, right? That they're starting to actually be like, oh, climate change is actually serious. And it is starting to look like the narrative that I have been espousing on this show is starting to sink into their stupid brains a little bit, which is that you can't eat money, right? Like, you can't breathe money, you can't drink money, right? Like, money is just a tool that we use in order to facilitate trade amongst one another, and we have started to worship it, right? And so we're starting to actually see these detached losers who haven't worked a day in their life, have never really stepped outside of their glittering palaces, except to, campaign amongst the plebs from time to time. We're actually starting to see them do things because, if we don't, then the whole thing burns down. It's just that what they're doing is stupid, right? Like, you can't. Here, let's pull out the things that I'm actually talking about, right? So what are they doing here? They're actually reducing the amount of fertilizers that are being used, right? So that there's an emissions reduction in farming. Hey, Barnabas, I know ads, right? It's almost as though I would like money. It's almost as though, I wouldn't like money. It's almost as though I would like to be able to pay my rent. I know, right? Ads, it's the worst. Hey, Mystic, how you doing, bud? Good to see you again. And I am actually all for this idea. I'm all for this reducing emissions in the agricultural sector. We know that one of the primary driving forces of climate change is the food industry, is specifically it's cattle, right? Cow farts, quite frankly, just straight up the waste that these cattle are producing. Like, you think about how wasteful it is to have all of this readily available meat for McDonald's or whatever, right? Just the most low-grade, shittiest quality meat that you can possibly find. Well, you've got to grow the food to feed the cattle, so there's climate change emissions being created there. And then the cattle themselves emit a great deal. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable to say of these industries, hey, we need to reduce emissions and all that kind of stuff. Where it becomes hypocritical is that we are simultaneously saying to the fossil fuel industry, the number one cause, right? Oh, that's fine. That's fine. We don't need you to hit your targets. Primary source of climate change. Number one, not even close. Like, the number one culprit is the fossil fuel industry. No, it's fine if you miss your targets. That's fine. We'll just gouge into the These are liberal voters anyway. These people aren't voting liberal anyway, so it doesn't matter, right? It's just such a dumb clusterfuck, and it's becoming really, really obvious that we're starting to see, even the Americans now are starting to be like, oh yeah, maybe we should do something. Maybe we should do literally anything. Like, maybe we should do literally anything. Incidentally, right, this U.S. to plant 1 billion trees, like, it's 1 billion trees, it sounds like a lot, right? It sounds like it's like, oh my god, 1 billion trees. Oh, what an overwhelming number, right? Well, China has been planting like billions of trees every single year since the 70s. There is a desert in China that has the nickname the Sea of Death. It's the nickname that they gave this desert. Here, let's bring up. It's been such a long time since I've actually looked at Google Maps. I got to tell you, I kind of miss it. I miss looking at Google Maps. Google Maps is my jam. There's a desert. You can see it right here, right? Right? It's the Sea of Death. And I forget the name of the desert, which is why I brought Inner Mongolia. But there are sections of this desert that China has been pushing back. And the desert is starting to turn into green land as the efforts from the Chinese are pushing the desert out. So they're being successful in de-desertifying their deserts. A project that takes hundreds and hundreds of years, like hundreds and hundreds of years, and they're seeing successes doing it. And meanwhile, the Americans are just starting to go,
oh, maybe we should plant some trees. Maybe if we think about some trees, we could maybe plant some trees, maybe.
Right? So we are super far behind. Super far behind. Right? We are, and I'm more or less of the opinion that the wildfires that are going to sweep through America, like you got to think about, like, here's the equator, right? The thing that's protecting this area here is the Amazon rainforest, right? Is the Amazon rainforest. And we know that in the Congo, right? The Congo is actually selling its forests away so that it can, come on, dude. Oh yeah, this is it right here, Doi. Sorry, I'm looking at DRC. I knew this was Congo, right? They also have their own rainforest here that they are actually selling to be chopped down and exploited for all the normal stuff, right? All the normal stuff that the death cult wants, right? Instead of actually paying these people to make that not happen, which is exactly what we should be doing, right? That we should be giving the Democratic Republic of Congo the money they need in order to develop their country and treat this as a protected territory, right? That's the solution, by the way, right? That the world looks at the Democratic People's Republic of Congo, right? And the Democratic Republic of Congo goes, well, we're going to sell the rainforest to oil conglomerates and oil industry. And the rest of the world goes, don't do that. We're going to match what you're going to sell, and we'll pay you that in order to maintain this, right? And then just literally give the Congo money in order to develop itself, because that's the whole argument, isn't it? The whole argument is, well, we've got to sell these resources because that's the only way for us to yabbity blibbity blob. Well, guess what? The Congo does have a resource we want. The Congo does have a resource we want. And that resource is the rainforest, right? We don't want them to destroy the rainforest. No one should want them to destroy the rainforest. So what's the solution? Match the price and say to them, we're going to give you that money instead of the fossil fuel industry. Don't burn down your rainforests. Are we going to do that? No, because we're a death cult, right? We're a death cult. Like, all of this is just fucking tokenism, right? This is just fucking tokenism. This is literally going, I guess. Like, if we're not nationalizing the fossil fuel industry, we're not serious. Straight up. And we're not serious. We're desperately unserious. And but then you take a look, right? Look at the United States, man. Like, actually look at it with an adult brain, right? Take off your baby brain, right? Lonnie Kratz, it's been so long since I've seen you in chat. Good to see you, Lonnie. Where have you been? Huh? You've been gallivanting with other podcasters, haven't you? Good to see you, Lonnie. Half of the United States is a desert. And that desert is expanding rapidly. Right? And as the wildfires sweep through, right? It's going to burn down all the trees. And what's going to happen? The desert's going to claim that territory. Right? And especially because we know how America operates. Right? That this 1 billion tree plan is just going to be money laundering, right? They're going to give the money to some companies, and the companies will, like, throw seeds in an area and say, we did it, right? And then they're going to pocket the money, because that's how America actually works. And it's going to fail, because that's the story of America, is just fail upwards, right? This desert's going to expand. It's going to expand extremely rapidly. It's going to be shocking how fast this expands. Like, we're looking at a return to the Dust Bowl, right? And as the wildfires sweep through, and as this billion tree plan, right, fails, it's just going to get worse. Government handouts. I mean, right now it's all government handouts, isn't it? Right? Like, this is the thing that's so fucking annoying about this conversation, is that if it wasn't for the government handouts to the fossil fuel industry, the fossil fuel industry would actually be going bankrupt. Right? Like, there are alternative fuel sources. Solar and wind. Solar is actually cheaper already than fossil fuel energy. It's already cheaper. And so what's the only thing that's keeping the fossil fuel industry competitive? The government handouts. That's what's happening. Like, and what do you call it? When the state and business merge. Oh, is that what Mussolini called fascism? Yeah. That's what that is. So instead of allowing the fossil fuel industry to collapse, which it should, right? Instead of erecting a basic income to protect the people who will lose their livelihoods because of the collapse of this industry, instead of that, the fossil fuel industry takes those people hostage, lobbies the government, right? What any other country in the world would call corruption, and maintains this system of death instead of moving to alternative sources that already exist and are already cheaper. Like, talk about your baby brain. And in the meantime, right, you got a country like Venezuela. Venezuela has something like 60% of the world's lithium and the largest oil deposit on the planet. Like, America wants to blow this place up and take it. No doubt. And they're being very open about it too. They're no longer pretending like there's any other reason for them to be doing what they're doing in Venezuela.
Oh yeah, but Venezuela is failing because of socialism.
Yeah, okay. Yep, Southern conservatives, climate change is a hoax. We got Jesus and guns. Howdy, 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 howdy. You bet. Watson, good to see you, bud. Good to see you. I'm saying they do what they also cry foul. Government for corpse equals contracts when it's a hand. Oh yeah, exactly. Like, if it's money for people, for anybody in the populace, it's a handout. But if it's money for worthless investors, it's a bailout or a contract or something like that, right? It's quantitative easing, right? When it's free money for worthless parasites, it's quantitative easing. When it's free money for people to get food, it's a handout, right? It's just baby brain at this point. Like, we're dealing with literal just brain rot. People who have ceased to actually think, right? Like, something I think about here. Yesterday we got talking about some spiritual stuff, and it got me thinking about this chakra thing. No, not Shaka Khan. That's so funny, dude. It got me thinking about Shaka Khan. No, got me thinking about something I articulate all the time. Come on, load. Load. The people. They want to see it. Okay, it didn't load. That's a there we go. That's the one I want. If you look at this, right? This is a useful visualization chart. Forget about like there's actual spheres of energy inside of you. Forget that. Forget that. Okay? If that's what you're thinking, like this guy thinks there's literal spheres of energy literally inside of you. No, get it. Go away. It's a visualization chart. That's what it's for, right? So according to the chakra system, energy begins here, in your balls, in like your genitals, right? Makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? Like, and the more you actually think on it, the more you realize, like, yeah, that's actually right. That we don't start here. Like, Western civilization starts your life and the way you exist here, and pretends as though you generate yourself from here. Your brain is a processing unit. That's what it is, right? It's processing information that's coming into your body. That it doesn't generate information, it processes information. So once again, we've inverted the way that we think about the world here in the West. That we think we're a brain inside of a meat body, being like, I know what's going on, and I have all the information, and I'm all like that, because we're dumb, right? When the truth is that the brain is a processing unit for the information that comes through your body. And the stronger and the better off you make your body, the better you can process that information and react to it. And you know this is true, by the way, fundamentally, right? You are not actually in control of your own body, and you know that that's true, right? You ever see somebody lose their temper? How could that be possible? Right? How could that be possible that a person lose their temper? If it's just like a brain, right? And you're in a brain kind of thing. Oh, it turns out we're emotional creatures first. That we're reacting primarily to the information that we're given. And if we don't acknowledge that's the case, then we will always be reactionaries, right? That and if you look at the chakra chart, right? And if energy goes up like this, well, the last thing that happens is that you think about it, right? That the first thing that happens is survival. You're looking for your own survival, right? Then you're trying to enjoy yourself, right? So survive. Have a good time, right? Create any kind of idea of self, right? Confidence, power, right? Love. Then the ability to articulate, right? To actually articulate what you think. And then you get into thinking about shit. And then this is just like a sense of meta self, a sense of yourself within the world. And you'll notice a couple of fun things in the chakra system. That energy hits your mouth before it hits your brain. You ever hear the phrase, oh, he spoke without thinking? Right? He spoke without thinking? How could that be possible if we're just brains in our head? How could you ever say something without thinking? It doesn't make sense unless this is how it is. And I'm more or less of the opinion that most of the society is just basically vomiting garbage out of their mouths and aren't even using this. Like, this doesn't exist at all in people's brains. Like, people aren't getting into their brain space even a little. They're just mistaking their ability to speak for thinking. Good to see you, CR Strifey. CR Strifey, we were talking about you in the Discord the other day, dude, and I really, like a week ago, I think it was now, we really got into it, bud, and I just want to reiterate something to you, bud. I really respect how gracefully you handled that, and I do want to apologize to you for that. I feel like I could have handled that a lot better, and I did let my emotions get the better of me. I was very angry. I even said that I was very angry at the time, and you deserved better than that, bud. So thanks for handling that with grace, bud. I appreciate that. My dick lost his temper, exactly. Al Content. Don't know if I've ever seen... first time watching live, big fan of your work? Well, thanks a lot, bud. I appreciate that. That's so amazing to hear. It's always good to see a new person in the stream. And a fan. Big fan of my... Oh, my God. Oh, my God. Oh, my God. And here I was feeling kind of a little bit bad about myself today. Well, Al Content. This one's for you, bud. This one's for you. When climate change comes in full effect, watch conservatives blame transgenders. That's exactly what they're doing, though. Like, it is. It is exactly what's happening, right? And they'll blame everything except the source, right? Expect to see a lot of Russia blaming, right? Expect to see a lot of that stuff. Yeah, Juan Guaido will president of Venezuela. Yeah, once it receives its gift of freedom. Exactly. Exactly. My favorite is that in communist circles, anytime any leader gets deposed, the joke is that Juan Guaido has been declared the president of that country. So, like, if Zelensky dies, let's say, the joke will be Juan Guaido declared president of Ukraine, right? Which, incidentally, get ready for it. Chances are good that Zelensky will get picked off. He'll be Saddam'd. That's what's going to happen. I just received zucchini and cucumbers from my neighbors. Oh, building social relations are good. That's nice. That's nice grinning. Just getting some free food. Human beings are so fucking stupid. Yeah, we really are, dude. Like, we are. And in the West, it's especially bad. And it is because we've inverted the way that we actually exist in the world. The way we think about the world in the West is the opposite of what is the truth. That we are primarily bodies. Like, you are not separate from your body, right? You are not a being living in a body. You are your body, right? And the information that your body receives, it reacts to first, right? When you get like when you see a beautiful woman or a beautiful man, right? Is it your brain reacting? No. And anybody who thinks that is dumb. Like, really. Like, it's not your brain reacting, right? Your brain will get the information and process it, because that's what it's doing, right? But you get your heart going, right? You get your genitals going, oh, whoa, 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 right? When you're laughing, you don't think, that is a funny joke. I shall send laughter down to the processing unit, and then, ho, ho, ho. That's not what happens, right? Laughter is involuntary. It comes from your belly. That's why they call it a belly laugh, right? And it just happens, and then you can process it afterwards, right? And but if you don't actually put into your consciousness any form of awareness that this is how you work, first and foremost, then you just become a reactionary, right? And if you're walking around like your Shapiros and your Petersons and these guys thinking, I am a brain in a jar, which is obviously what they think, then you are incapable of existing in the world through any other method except reactionary. And Shapiro is the case in point on this, by the way. His whole shtick is that he just talks a lot, right? So he just spews vomit out of his mouth, right? It's just going blah, 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 and none of that energy is going here. 0% of that energy is going to his brain, and 0% of that energy is going into the meta sense. Like, Shapiro does not understand who he is in the world at all. 0%. Right? Because if he paused for any amount of time and actually thought and sent energy into the meta space, he would realize that he's a little Nazi. Right? Because it's obvious. Like, it's obvious, dude. Like, it's obvious that he's a little Nazi. Right? Or a Zionist, if you prefer. But, like, It just all energy is here. And that's why he talks this fast. And he goes like this. And I go, well, actually, according to... And then people go, wow, he felt smart. It's not smart. Just like Peterson. These guys aren't smart. They just talk a lot. That's it. They just talk a lot. Right? And they are proof positive that if you speak very fast, And in an esoteric way, you can convince people that what you're saying is true. Right? It's the con man's grift. But they're not smart. Right? I actually think that someone like Shapiro is well below average. Like, well below average. Anata. I believe in this energy, Sumi. Yeah, I mean, that's great. My point is that you don't have to. Right? That's my point, is that you don't have to. Right? Like, I think people get really caught on like, oh, it's you're literally believing in literal energy that's literally there, and that's what a bunch of hooboo. You can't prove that scientifically. What a bunch of blah, 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 blah. And then so any value that could be drawn out of it is gone because you're caught in this. It's not literally the literal, right? And what matters is that you just use it as a visualization guide. How often do you actually think about your emotions at all? How often do you pause and go, I am an emotional creature. I have emotions. I exist in the world primarily as an emotional being. I almost guarantee that it's never. I almost guarantee that the answer to that question is never. You never pause and ever think about yourself as an emotional creature. And if you do, it's kind of in this glancing sort of a way. Well, the chakra system gives you a foundation by which you can confront and dwell on and think about and struggle with the idea that you're an emotional creature. And it doesn't matter if you think it's literally the case. Although if you do, you'll probably get more out of it, frankly. But even if you don't, at least you're grappling with the ideas. Right, you're grappling with your own sexuality, with your desires for survival, for your idea, like your existence in the world. You're grappling with the concept of having enjoyment in the world. It's completely possible to be in this world and just be miserable, and you don't know why, and you have no idea what's going on. Right? Well, maybe dwell on the chakra. Right? Maybe dwell on the sacral chakra for a minute. Right? Figure out what's blocking you, what's getting in your way. Your own personal power and self-confidence. Right? If you're sitting around like this all the time, right? If you're sitting around like this all the time, right? You're gonna have less confidence. Right? Whereas if you're up in the world, you're gonna have more confidence. It's very, very straightforward physical representations, right? And then your heart, your throat, your brain, your ability to sense yourself within your own world, right? Like these people get hung up on the spirituality aspect of it. I consider this to be a very physical, very grounded, hard reality. That it gets communicated in this very like airy, like we need to grab the energies around us and find the place in our space and bring it into... No. You want to laugh. You want to fuck. Right? You want to have confidence. You want to love. You want to speak. You want to think. And you want to know what's going on around you. Well, here it is, represented in a visualization guide. Use it. Use it. What do you think of the idea certain fertilizer emission rules could lead to the closure of small farms, allowing big corporate farms to buy up land? I heard this idea in regards to the Netherlands. Yeah, of course that's what's happening. No, I mean, I think that's, like, any other narrative is nuts to me. That, like, clearly that's what's going on. That, like, it's the same thing that happened over the pandemic, right? Who got the money during the pandemic? Was it the small business owners, or was it the big corporate guys? Right? Like, the whole process is extraction and abandonment, right? And it's just, and so obviously they're bankrupting small fish so that the big fish can take it over, right? Because there's an investor class. And, I mean, we could see that very clearly. Blackstone CEO Jonathan Gray says rental housing and logistics are two of the best sector in the entire economy, and rents will continue to rise. Right? Like, these people are psychopaths. Like, they just want more. And if you've got a small little farm, they are sitting there thinking, how do I bankrupt you and get your assets for cheap? That's what they think. That's how they think, because they're psychopaths, right? And what are they doing? They're bankrupting these people with the help of their partners, right? The Liberal Party, who operates on behalf of the wealthy exclusively. They're not interested in climate change. They don't care. They'll use climate change as the grift in order to bankrupt these people and get their assets for cheap. That they'll definitely do that. And it's sort of baby brainish to think that they won't. Like, I don't know why we're consistently refusing to acknowledge that these people are psychopaths. Like, it's kind of sweet in a way, actually. Like, it's kind of sweet that we are like normies, right? Like, we're normal people existing in the world. And there's this general sense in the populace that, well, they couldn't do that. What? That's well, what unto do? It's like we're all like, I don't know how to explain. Like we're all like, we are nice. Like, we are nice, and we believe that everyone around us is nice, and we believe that, like, oh, people would never do such a thing. Such a thing would be so above, like, that would be evil. No one would ever actually do that. And so those ideas never get into their contemplative space, right? It never gets into their awareness space that there are definitely people who will do that. Like, and won't even think it's bad, right? Won't even have the moment of like, is this a bad thing to do? Will I be considered a bad person? That just won't happen. They'll literally be like, oh, here's an opportunity to make money. Sure, it bankrupts these guys. I don't give a fuck. Free market. Like, that's the thought, right? And the populace generally, like, part of the reason why we've gotten into the problem that we're in is that we've given our leaders and our rulers so much credibility and so much moral position. Like, we have actually said of them, like, when they say to us, yeah, we've got it, we've gone, great. I think that's great. They've acknowledged that climate change is real and they're gonna do something about it. And there was like no sense in the populace that, oh, these people are treasonous, psychotic, murderous losers who are actively working to totally betray us, and this is a lie, right? Because we just don't want it to be true. We just don't want to accept that that's the truth. That the owners of the fossil fuel industry and their surrogates in the Liberal and Conservative Party have gone psychotic and are actively working to destroy us. We just don't want to believe it. And we should. We absolutely should. Like, look at what they're doing. The evidence is right in front of you. Like, if these people aren't psychopaths, then psychopaths don't exist. Yeah. Yet, people are afraid of any nuanced kind of way of thinking. It just has to be one or the other. Pure, tribalized, polarization brain. Well, and I also think it just has to do with, like, if you actually investigate this stuff, it's hard. It's work. Like, the hardest thing for a person to do is deal with themselves. No question. And people will go to enormous lengths to avoid it. People will go to enormous lengths to avoid it. The hardest thing for a person to do is sit by themselves alone in a room. It's why solitary confinement is considered one of the worst punishments. It's why if you take a person and put them in solitary for a period of time, it's considered like a fucking human rights violation. Because it's the hardest thing for a person to deal with. People would rather deal with pain than deal with themselves. People would rather deal with, like, horror, right? People watch, like, horror movies and shit. People would want to engage in disgusting acts and disgraceful activity, right? And look how much of our culture is just sheerly distractionary. It's because we're so desperate to not deal with ourselves. It's the hardest thing for a person to do. And so for a person to get into a space where they're thinking about things in a nuanced kind of a way takes an enormous amount of effort. It takes an enormous amount of energy. It takes an enormous amount of patience. It takes an enormous amount of time. And people don't want to do it. They want easy answers. They want very simple, straightforward, like... And most people, if you ask me, most people don't actually care if what's being said is right or wrong. All a person generally cares about is this what everybody agrees on? That's what I think most people are actually doing, right? Because they're just trying to live in the world, get by, and if everybody is standing up and saying, the color purple is the greatest of all colors, then most people will go, yeah, the color purple, great, right? And they don't have an opinion or they don't care. And even if they do think, I prefer yellow, if they look around and see everybody saying purple is the greatest of all colors, they're going to wear purple and do purple because they want to fit in. Being part of the in group is so much more important to people, right? It takes some kind of Looney Tunes guy like me to be willing to be in the out group. Right? Because I don't fucking care about being in the in-group of this suicidal death cult, right? And so I think, like, you're stating it correctly, pure tribalized polarization brain, but a lot of it is just, like, people don't have the time, the energy, or the effort, or even the understanding that it's important, right? They just want to get through. They just want to get through. They don't know what this is. No one's trying to explain it to them, right? There's no reward outside of this idea of personal satisfaction or personal growth, which isn't valuable, right? The only thing that's valuable in this culture is selling yourself for money. And so do that. And if somebody comes up and says, stand with Ukraine, you go, yeah! And then get on with your fucking day. Right? Change your Facebook profile page to the blue and yellow so everybody knows. I stand with Ukraine. Right? Well, do you know what's happening in Ukraine? I know that Russia attacked it. And that's bad. Move on with your day. Right? You don't have to talk about the Donbass war. You don't need to talk about the coup. You don't need to talk about the fact that it's the most corrupt nation in Europe. You don't need to talk about the Nazis, like the literal open flag Nazis that exist in Ukraine. You don't need to talk about any of that. Right? Stand with Ukraine. Stand with Ukraine. And you're done. Right? Because most people are just like, and more, I said it in today's video. We know we all die, right? Like, we all know, and we all have within us this sense of, like, the call to the void, right? Philosophers will talk about it, like, when a car drives by you, there is this sense of madness that overtakes your energy for a minute, where you're like, I could just throw myself in front of that car, right? People who go parachuting talk about this, where they're falling, and some of them go, like, I'm just not going to open my parachute. Right? Because there's this energy or this thing that exists that is larger than humanity itself, that is just constantly saying, come back home. Come back to the void. This is the call to the void. Answer the call. And in many ways, I think our culture has been caught up by that. That we are just living in this, like, this desire to return to the void. That this is hard. This is too hard. It's too hard to maintain this. And now the culture is being asked to self-reflect and change itself. Way too hard. Way too hard. Let's just go back home. Let's just call it game over. Let's just take our ball and go home. It was easier when we weren't here. Let's just go to sleep and never wake up. I think that's mainly what's overtaken the populace. Which is why nobody's willing to do anything. Because boy, is that hard. Boy, is that hard. Conservative chakras. 1, grifting. 2, being genuinely stupid and dumb. Being a genuine lunatic and psycho. Well, I mean, I think for a lot, like, most conservatives are people whose, like, their security has been taken care of, right? And it's been taken care of through no force of their own, really. That, like, if you're, like, a farmer, like a rural farmer, you live on land that was given to your father or grandfather, right? Stolen from the First Nations people. Largest government handout in human history. Just free land given to people who showed up, right? Specifically white men who showed up from Britain. And so in terms of security, they're set. And they don't need to think about it. And they don't think about it, right? Everything I just said there, no rural farmer in the world accepts that is real. Which is why they're so affronted by this narrative of, hey, that's stolen land, right? Or this is First Nation stuff. Because fundamentally, intrinsically, they know that if that narrative is the narrative, well, then their ancestors are obviously the beneficiaries. Like, real obviously, right? And if something were to happen because of it, they would be the losers, right? So they intrinsically have something to lose. And so when that narrative comes up, you're hitting them right in their core, like right at the base root. And of course, they lack the capacity to articulate any of this, right? So what are they doing? They're just doing everything they can to keep their land, right? And you just go up the chain, right? And so if they refuse to accept reality on that level, well, the energy that's going up there is just going to be all fucked up. India drove thousands of farmers out of business, centralized profit generation. Yep, and it's happening here too. Like, it's a worldwide phenomenon. It's extraction and abandonment. Yeah, you were passionate that day and angry. It's okay. Thanks, CR Strifey. I appreciate that, bud. I appreciate that. I'm just glad you stuck around, bud. I'm just glad you stuck around. Well, Jesus did say that his spirit is willing, but his flesh is weak, demonstrating that his brain and our body are not always aligning with each other. Yeah, that's a good biblical analysis of it. I like Jesus when he stood on a rock south of Bethlehem and I don't know what you mean here, Barnabas. Sorry. First of all, you should blame trans people. Have you seen how hot these people are? Dude, Compton, you're hitting on something, man. The number one type of pornography that Republicans are Googling is trans porn. Isn't that great? Isn't that great to know? Are you happy that you tuned in today to hear that fact? The number one form of pornography that these Republicans are consuming is trans porn. Just talk about projection, man. Just talk about projection. Because clearly what's happening is that they're curious, right? So they're Googling it because they're all curious. And they're all in this in-group that says trans people are bad and confusing and I don't understand. And so they're Googling it, right? They're looking at the porn. They're probably jerking off to it, right? Because they're people. And then they get that kind of guilt sense, right? Because they're confronting the fact that they just found enjoyment from the thing they're supposed to hate. And so they're projecting it back on the world and being like, oh, I feel disgraceful and guilty because my society tells me to feel that way about enjoying this kind of thing. And instead of letting it all go and just being like, yeah, trans people. Yeah, I jerk off to that sometimes. Whatever, right? Like, instead of just letting that all go, they've got to take all that fear, guilt, anxiety, and hatred and put it back on the subject of their lust, that's giving them the enjoyment in the first place. So it's like the equivalent of a little boy walking up to a little girl that he likes and pulling her hair. Except now it's like on this scale of total mass destruction and death. Like, it's fucked up. It's so fucked up. And really, I would really respect these Republicans a lot more if they were just like, yeah, we're jerking off to trans porn. You trans people are weird, but, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Right? I would respect that a lot more. I would respect them a lot more if they were approaching the trans community more like they approach feminists and women generally, which is like, you're sex objects for us. At least I'm like, oh, okay, so you're not trying to kill them. You're just trying to subjugate them. Oh, okay. Fucking losers. Yeah, they're already blaming transgender and LGBTQ people. Look at monkeypox. Yeah, monkeypox is steadily becoming a bigger and bigger deal. I've been avoiding reporting heavily on monkeypox because it could just be a thing that pops in and then goes away. I haven't seen the big moment, you know what I mean? But more and more, it is starting to gather attention. So maybe I'll start bringing it in a little bit more. Anemone, good to see you. Watson says, so the term thinking with the other head is actually a thing. Yes, absolutely. And in the chakra sense, thinking with the other head actually means using your brain. Right? Because energy starts here. This is the primary source of energy. This is the first source. Right? It's called the root. It's where you start. People don't want to admit it. That's the thing. That's why sex in this culture needs to be dingy and disgusting. And if you enjoy sex, you're a pervert. If you're a man and you want to look at a woman's boobs, you're a pervert. Right? If you're a woman and you want to enjoy sex, you're a pervert. Right? We use the word pervert for somebody who enjoys sex. When everybody enjoys sex, excepting the asexuals, I always have to include the idea that there are people who are just asexual. God bless your hearts, right? You live in the world. But for the rest of us, we want sex. Like, sex is real. Like, it's part of what we are. And so we've done everything we can to demonize and shit on and make it dirty and filthy, disgraceful and disgusting. And what's the result of that? Everybody's filled with shame and guilt. Everybody's disgusted. If you talk openly about something you saw that you found sexually enjoyable, there's like this kind of sense about it. Like, fuck you. No wonder this place is so shitty. We're taking the base point of our energy source and the thing we all like, right? And we're making it dingy and disgusting and disgraceful, right? Like, yikes. Yikes. It's not free food. I've invested in my neighbor and it's coming back around. Fair enough, grinning. Fair enough, bud. This is incredibly based. I'm an incredibly based person, I'll contend. Tell the world. Tell your friends. Tell your family. Tell everybody. Like, we got to start using our brains, man. And moreover, we got to start accepting that the world we live in is far more powerful than we are. Like, we're such a backwards people. Peterson, as I'm sure everyone knows, is even more insufferable than he was. Yeah, because he used to be reined in by the idea that he was a professor, right? So he was reined in a little bit. He needed to have some dignity, right? Now he doesn't. He can just make himself look like an unhinged loser, and it doesn't matter. And people are paying him to do so. So he, to be fair, Shapiro speed vomits out of his mouth. Yeah, dude. I hate it when it jumps down like that. Hey, Not Milk, how you doing, bud? Just rewatched Ukraine on Fire. Is that the what's his name? Oliver Stone movie? Not Milk? You're so bang on, John. I think I like it here. Fantastic, bud. Yeah. Well, damn boxes with a donation. Thank you so much, damn boxes. I appreciate that, bud. $2.99. That's a very specific number, dude. That's a very, capitalist number. Not $3. $2.99. God damn it. Oh, wow. The chat's really chatting away. I gotta catch up. Oh, my God. You guys are real chatty today. Oh, my God. I love it. This is my favorite part, dude. This is my favorite part of doing the chat. Is that I love talking to the chat. It's without a doubt. Yeah, Ben Shapiro needs to realize his side don't even like him because he's a Jew. Well, and we got another one, Danarchist. Good to see you too, bud. Don't know if I've ever seen you in here. Like, Zionist equals Nazi, in my humble opinion. I mean, that's a position that agrees. You know who agrees with you is Einstein. Albert Einstein agrees with that position, that he took one look at these Zionists and were like, yeah, they're Nazis. Like, because they are. Look at what they've done. Right? Like, they went into a territory and have been ethnically cleansing it for, like, how long now? Like, almost 100 years. Like, it's been a long fucking time. They've been ethnically cleansing Israel. Right? It's a project of ethnic cleansing. Like, the Nazis would be like, well done. Well done. Right? And Ben Shapiro is essentially of that attitude. So, like, he's not a Nazi, he's more like a Zionist. After you talk about Andrew Tate yesterday, I decided to check out the video of Hassan about him. I've actually seen him before, where she from Manucat, where she did an entire video on Manosphere and how garbage they are. Well, Andrew Tate's an interesting phenomenon because what he's done is a pyramid scheme, a multi-level marketing scheme, and so he's got like an army of internet dorks sending his stuff all over the place for him for free. So he's basically getting free marketing because the strategy is, if I give $50 to Andrew Tate, right? And then if I can get someone else to also give Andrew Tate $50, I can get an affiliate code that will pay me. And the more people I can get signed up to give money to Andrew Tate, the more money I get. And then those people are in the same kind of position. So it's a pyramid scheme, right? I get signed up, and then I get people signed up, and if I get the more people I get signed up, the more money. So it's a pyramid scheme that eventually collapses, right? Because eventually you run out of suckers, and Andrew Tate walks away with the money, right? Experts in word soup, and they just ask, well, what is XYW? Yeah, make the simple complex. That's a big strategy for these guys, right? Make the simple complex, because the more complex you can make it seem, the more you can waste people's time talking about it, right? Hassan destroyed Andrew Tate so bad that Tate started wearing T-shirts again. Yeah, I mean, Hassan exposed him, certainly. And Andrew Tate is going to be a millionaire until the day he dies. He's not going to face any consequences. And I'm more or less of the opinion that his conversations with Hassan probably made him money. People probably signed up, right? Like, people are desperate, man. Like, Andrew Tate is what happens when we have no moral advocates or anybody in the society that actually stands for anything, right? When you exist in a vacuum, right? When there's a vacuum of intellectualism, when there's a vacuum of emotional conversation, when there's a vacuum, right? Frauds and hucksters show up and take advantage of it. That's what happens. And the structure of capitalism is such that people are rewarded well for doing so, right? People are well rewarded for being frauds and conmen and hucksters and shysters, right? And people who actually stand up and try to tell the truth and try to be kind and try to be nice and try to expose these people, well, they don't get rewarded, do they? Right? They don't get rewarded. They get shoved out to the margins. They get chased out of the society. They get chased out of the conversation, right? Like someone like Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson and Andrew Tate. Well, they get platformed by YouTube, and they get prioritized in the algorithm, and they get sent up to the top. Someone like me, I get shoved down to the bottom, right? Because these guys are fundamentally saying reinvest into the dying system, and I am saying de-invest from the system. Because that's what we should do, right? Like, Andrew Tate, for all of his saying, like, oh, these guys are all frauds and all this kind of stuff, and yabba, yabba, yabba. His whole pitch is to just reinvest in it. Like, that's his whole pitch. Andrew Tate versus my Tate. Very nice. Yeah, Andrew Tate versus liberals, lion. Andrew Tate versus leftists, kitty. Yeah, that's exactly that's exactly the truth, dude. I drink until I can't feel feelings, Homer Simpson. But that is there's something to that, Watson. Like, the reason why people drink is because it turns this shit off. It reduces this, right? That we are bombarded with thought all the time. And you're not generating those thoughts. Those thoughts are happening to you, right? You're not creating thoughts. The thoughts are happening to you. And when you drink, you create like a barrier so that it can't happen anymore. You become dumb, right? On purpose. You become dumb. And that's why you'll find people who, when they drink, they get real mad, right? They get real mad, right? And they become angry drunks. It's because this has taken over, right? This has taken over. If you reduce the capacity for this to be in charge, something else is going to take over, right? And you get people who like become, or you get people who become really loving, you know? I love you, man. I love you. Well, that's this. That's this taking over, right? Like, or you get people who just start babbling, right? Like, alcohol alters your emotional state. We like that it does that. We like that it reduces this, because this is so overdeveloped in our culture, and we believe that this is all that matters. And so what do we do in response to that? We do everything we can to reduce it. And when we reduce it, something else takes over, right? And marijuana, incidentally, it has a similar thing in terms of the reduction of this, but it increases this. That's what happens with marijuana. Is that instead of, like, alcohol shuts this off, so this is not going to happen, right? That's how you become blackout drunk. Like, how is it possible, if this is what's in charge, how is it possible that you can drink so much that you don't remember and you black out, but you're still going around and doing shit? It's because this shuts off, but energy starts here and comes up. And so you can get all of this working while this is just off. Right? Tell me I'm wrong. And marijuana operates in a similar manner, but instead of this shutting off, right, it just allows the energy to flow up here, and then this becomes the big thing. That's why people get paranoid, right? That's why people can have these moments of like, whoa, I never thought about that before, right? Because you've never actually attempted to view yourself in your society, right? You've never actually pulled yourself out of your own body and viewed yourself from like a third person perspective within the society you live in, right? And marijuana facilitates that and lets you do that. And you get relaxed, so all of the energy can just flow straight up to it, right? You get chill, you know? Just don't go to war with Hindus. Just don't go to war generally, is what I say. It's introspection. Cons and libs are both doing mental gymnastics to explain away the failings of capitalism hellscape in which we live. Yeah, dude. Yeah. The pandemic fucked over small business owners, yeah. They're too big to fail! Even though the whole fucking idea of capitalism is that if you create a business model and it fails, then it fails. And it doesn't matter if it's too big, right? One might argue that something that's too big should fail, right? Like, if a creature spawned into this reality that was 10 times as big as any other creature, it would probably collapse due to its own weight and inability to eat food. It's not too big to fail. And if all you did was try to feed it to keep it alive, then you'd destroy the place, which is exactly what we're doing. Poor people didn't have much to start, and CERB rent went straight to landlords. Yep. They are buying all the houses, even if they are new, turning them into condominiums. Yep, that's the truth, dude. We got Canadian city. This is from Better Dwelling. Canadian cities have seen investors buy up to 100% of newly constructed condos. Right? Like, what do you think's happening here, guys? Like, what do you think's happening? Ad break. Sorry about that. I don't like doing it, but someone's got to pay for this shit. Well, and we got Dan Boxes given $2.99. God bless your heart, sir. God bless your heart. Poor people didn't have much to start. Yeah, they're buying all the houses. Yeah, cognitive dissonance. We're emotionally invested, so we can't face the harsh truth. Yeah. And moreover, it's even worse than that, Al, because we lack the capacity to to face it. So even if we wanted to, we don't have the toolkit. We don't know what to do, and we don't know how to do it. Right? Andrew Tate, by far the worst of these podcast dudes, in my opinion. Yeah. Well, because he's openly misogynist. Like, he's not... Like, he says he's not, but he obviously is. Right? Like, he obviously is. And it's insufferable. Right? He's insufferable. I actually would respect him more if he just admitted he was a misogynist. Like, if he just said, yeah, I'm a chauvinist. Yeah, I'm a misogynist. Men are better than women. Get fucked. If that's what he was saying, I'd be like, oh, okay. Like, I obviously disagree, and I think that's a bad position to take. But at least you're not bullshitting me about it. But this position where he, like, says this misogynist, chauvinistic bullshit, and then says, I'm a feminist. I actually think that this is good for feminism. I'm just like, shut up. Shut up, dude. Fucking dumb. Re-bankrupting farmers deliberately for the benefit of big ag. I think the way you're attacking this is the way the left should go about explaining it. Yeah. I mean, but it's because it's so obviously the truth. Like, it couldn't be more black and white. Like, I guess that's the reason why I haven't made a video about it, because it seems so obvious that that's what's happening. You know what I mean? But now I'm getting convinced that tomorrow's video should be about this, because, like, do we not know? Like, did we not know? Sour grapes. People actually bought into Kantian thought. Oh, into Kantian thought is hilarious. I don't know enough about Kant to comment on that, John, you know? We're literally collectively defending politicians from having people threatening them for being criminals. Yeah. Don't say fuck Trudeau, that's fascism. Yeah, I know, right? I know, dude. Well, it just goes to show you, though, like, liberals will bend the knee to the worst ideologies in the society, right? And they'll do it just to be part of an in-group, right? That liberals fundamentally don't care about the truth or what's right. They care about power, right? That there's a theory that I picked up from theater, of all things, and playwriting, when you're talking about character motivation, right? Well, characters and people are only motivated by three things. There's only three forces. And you've got to root your character or root your analysis of a person in one of these three things. People are motivated by power, vengeance, or love. Right? And the best characters are motivated by all three. Right? And people can be motivated by one or the other, but there's usually one that supersedes the other. So you think about, like, a classic example, Hamlet. Hamlet is obviously motivated by vengeance. He knows that his uncle killed his father, and he is on the path to kill his uncle for it. Right? That's vengeance. Macbeth. Macbeth is obviously on a power quest. Right? He kills the king and tries to usurp him and take his throne. Why? For power. Because he wants power. Romeo and Juliet. Love. Right? Love. And liberals, right? Liberals are motivated almost exclusively by power. And they will bend the knee to power. That they're not motivated by love. Because if they were motivated by love, they would be saying things like, hey, we gotta take control of this. Like, we gotta nationalize this. We gotta do something because we care about this place. Right? They don't care about this place. They care about power and who has it. And the moment the conservatives take power, most of these liberals are going to bend the knee. Most of them are going to bend the knee. Right? Because they're motivated exclusively by power. I'm watching on 2 screens. Wow, 2 screens. You're like double fisting. Jonathan Gray is a sociopath with a complete lack of conscience as Blackstone exploits everyone and everything. Yeah, dude. This is why I don't get huge on, like, the WEF. You know what I mean? Like, I've talked several times about this on this channel, but it's worth bringing up again. That, like, people get really hyper-focused on the WEF. This organization is way more powerful and way more important. Right? Way more important. Like, they don't need to go to the WEF and ask permission. right? They just do this shit. Maybe they'll go to the WF to inform them that they're doing it, but, like, they're not asking permission. Yeah, no one wants to face themselves. They'd rather double down on being wrong. Yeah. That's the worst, man. When people double down on it, oh, that's tough. That's tough. That's why when you find somebody who's willing to, like, be, and this to me was what I consider to be my absolute strength as a podcaster and as a person, which is that if I say something, and it doesn't matter how much I'm convicted of, or convinced of it, and someone challenges me and presents me with empirical evidence that I am wrong, I will change my view. That to me has always been my strength. And because I've learned through my life that it's better. It's harder, but it's better. Right? I used to be a fundamentalist Christian. I used to argue against homosexuality from a biblical perspective and because of my Christian upbringing. Right? And I look back on that and the experience and the journey going from being a fundamentalist Christian to not being a fundamentalist Christian. And boy, howdy, could I have been I could have done it faster. I could have made a lot more friends. I could have been a lot better to a lot of people. I could have got laid a lot more, right? My life would have been explicitly better if I had just accepted the truth and changed. And so when I'm confronted with empirical facts and empirical evidence, change faster. Liberty had a libertarian, I literally had a libertarian yesterday telling me that true capitalism will give a livable wage to everyone and everybody gets their basic needs met. Yeah, dude, this fantasy version of capitalism. True capitalism! This is not true capitalism. True capitalism will spread goodness throughout the land. This is true capitalism. This idea that there's true capital, this is true capitalism. True capitalism, if you opened up the free market, right, unregulated and all that crazy shit that these libertarians say, what happens? All the wealth goes underneath a small group of people, and those people use their wealth to buy the power structure. That's what happens. That's play one game of Monopoly. Like this is why libertarians are so embarrassing. Libertarians are so embarrassing because their entire philosophy can be blown up with one board game that was invented like 100 years ago. That we all know and we've all played. Right? Everybody's played Monopoly. Everybody owns a copy of Monopoly. Monopoly's everywhere. We all know it. Right? It was created as a critique of this system. And if you play one game of it with that kind of awareness, you see very quickly, oh, yeah, all the wealth eventually pools up into the hands of a single person or a single community, and they will obviously use that wealth to buy the power structure. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they? Like and so libertarianism in America is just the most embarrassing of ideologies. It's like so easy to just be like, nah, a 12-year-old can see it. Like, and if you're still like over the age of 12 talking like a libertarian, maybe it's time to shut the fuck up. Like maybe it's time to just shut the fuck up. Like it's embarrassing. Yeah. They don't care. They just want to feel good and have friends that agree with them. Exactly, yeah. You don't want to be on the out group. And I mean that's how like the Christian cults make headway too, right? And they prey on the weak and the vulnerable because the weak and the vulnerable have nowhere else to go. And so the weak and the vulnerable get involved in these communities because they have nowhere else to go. There is no other community, right? And they just go along with the bullshit that's being said because if they say this sounds like bullshit and leave, then they have nothing. Right? So it doesn't matter what their and that's why attacking them ideologically or culturally doesn't actually work. Right? Because and that's why people are so confused by Trump. Right? People are so confused by Trump because they're like, but he's so full of shit, it's so obvious. Right? But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that he's full of shit. It doesn't matter. What matters is that the material conditions of the people who are following people like Trump or other Christian frauds, the material conditions are so bad that they have nowhere else to go. And if you actually want to address it, then you've got to address their material conditions. Yeah, don't have to talk about free love in Canada fighting Nazis in Donbass. Exactly. Gots. Good to see you, Seraphim. Yeah, that's how fascism easily takes over capitalist states. Yeah, Japanese kamikaze pilots apparently felt a tremendous peace before crashing into the ships. Yeah. Yeah, dude. Like, the human brain, when it is faced with death, floods you with serotonin and dopamine and all of those things. It floods you with all of the good feeling shit. People don't die with a sense of terror. People die with a sense of joy, if they feel anything at all when it happens, right? And it's because and really when you think about it, that's kind of wild, actually, that evolution has somehow created a species that when it meets its moment of death, it likes it. Isn't that interesting? That's an interesting one for me. Like, what is the evolutionary rationale for that? Like, what is the evolutionary benefit of making people like dying? I think it's fair to say that a large chunk of the populace expects or even believes that the ruling class thinks like them with their issues in mind. I think that's exactly right, Anemone. That they think that what the politicians are saying to them is real. That there isn't a sense of like, this is just WWE showmanship, right? They don't see it as theater, right? They think it's real. And that's what I'm trying to break down. Trying to break down to people that what they're presenting to us and what they say to us is not real. It's theatrics, right? Exclusively theatrics. And if it didn't work, then they would not talk this way. They would change what they say. But we love it. As a people, we love it. We consistently vote for the best liar. Which is why, and the liberals know this, by the way. The liberals have figured this out. That how you maintain power and how you get power in Canada is by lying the best. And that's why Pierre Poilievre is such a threat to the liberals. And why the liberals are working so hard to try to depose him. Right? Right now they're trying a charade gambit that's not going to work. Right, and they keep getting articles published being like, Poilievre's going to be a disaster for Canada, it's going to be a swing to the far right, oh my god, all this kind of stuff, right? But the true reason why they're afraid of Poilievre is because unlike O'Toole and unlike Scheer, Poilievre understands that the best way to get power is to lie, right? And he is a very effective liar. He knows what to say, he knows how to say it, and because all politics is a vanity project, Justin Trudeau doesn't want to lose. He doesn't want to no longer be the prime minister. He wants to be the prime minister because it's good for him to be the prime minister because I'm an important person and I'm the prime minister even though I don't do anything with it. Right? Like Justin Trudeau's going to turn 80 and be like, what? I was the king of this place and I did fuck all. Man. Weird. Right? And Poilievre's not going to be any different. Like, Poilievre's going to get into power. He's going to become the king of Canada. And he's going to do fuck all with it. He's going to basically turn to the industries and be like, well, what do you need? And the industries are going to go, well, tax breaks and cut these things so that we can vulture them. And Poilievre's going to go, great. Martyrs often feel very comforted when they die, yeah. Draghi went down. I wonder which idiot Europe is going to go down next. Probably Germany Schultz. Maybe they'll learn something. Ted Cruz seems to like stepmom porn. Good for him, man. That is a very robust version. And also, a really, really good way to just sort of sidestep the Oedipus complex shit, right? Like, this is something I think about all the time, guys. Like, we literally, like, there's a phrase that we all know called "who's your daddy," right? And if young women call their partners daddy, we're all just like, yeah, right? So incest as an idea exists in our society, and we're all just like, yeah, well, what are you going to do about it? Right? And so what the porn industry has done in order to like sidestep this ever so slightly has been like, come watch our step mom porn. And it seems like the populace has gone, yeah, close enough. I gotta say, I'm proud of us. I'm proud of us. Good for us. For acknowledging that it's not okay. It is not okay for you to have sex with your mom, or your sister, or your brother, or your dad. It's not okay. But we have found a loophole. So you gotta take the growth moments where you can find them. You gotta take the growth moments where you can find them. Rule 34 is full of food fetishists. Yeah. This is typically the 4chan crowd. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Well, we're in a real, like, people are entranced by this trans thing, man. Like, we're in a real trans moment, right? And, like, everybody is, like, obviously curious. The curiosity by itself is enough, I think, to drive a lot. And so, like, we're in this moment suddenly where you can have, like, people who are, like, you know, drawing porn and all this kind of stuff. They're just like, why don't I just put a dick on this? Let's just put a dick on this. What happens if I put a dick on this, right? It's that straightforward. I have no judgment for it. I'm just like, yeah, off you go, right? We're curious. We're like little monkeys being like, ooh, this thing's it. That's it. Not probably. They are. Estonia PM went down. Boris Johnson went down. Draghi went down. Russia cutting further gas before winter. Yeah, dude. No, Tinker, man. Like, it's gonna be across the board, man. The populace is just gonna, like, this is why this war with Ukraine was so fucking stupid. It was so fucking, another United States blunder. Like, forget about the fact of talking about it's a moral abomination or anything. But, like, just from, like, I care about my own country and I would like us to do well as a people. Like, from any position that you can actually think about, it's so dumb fuck what they've done. Like, all they have done is damage themselves, damage the EU, and chased Russia into the hands of the Chinese and the Indians. Like, I cannot express this enough, man. Like, this is what kills me so fucking much about what's happening with this Ukraine situation, is that Russia literally said to the EU and the United States and Canada, hey, can I join NATO? Hey, I would also like to join NATO. We could all I know that you guys created this organization as a way to fight against and protect against the Soviet Union, right? But Soviet Union has been dismantled. We all like this neoliberal thing. I, Vladimir Putin, am of this oligarchic class that has benefited from this neoliberal era. We, Russia, should join NATO. And as a collective force, we can turn on China and fight back. And the Europeans said no. Like clown shoes, dude. Like clown shoes. And so now, instead of creating a political alliance with Russia, securing gas and oil for Europe, instead of actually buddying up the United States and Russia, ending this rivalry and dispute, right? Like Goku and Vegeta, right? There's a Dragon Ball reference for you cool kids at home, right? Instead of taking a rivalry and turning it into a friendship, right? when the moment came for us to actually strengthen and broaden our alliance across the globe, we went, nah, and then did everything we possibly could to start a war with them. Total clown shoes, dude. These people are fucking clowns. It's unbelievable to watch. Ugh. This is why trans porn is praxis. Oh yeah, dude. I speak truths every day. You just need to show up, dude. You just need to show up. There is a serious gay panic going on with monkeypox. Yeah, akin to AIDS. I've heard this. As a queer person, it's very concerning. Yeah, dude. It does seem. Hey, Kay, how you doing? Good to see you. Well, yeah, we haven't done the number draw yet. I'm just so excited by this chat. Today's chat is so great. Freedom, Canada. I bet Freedom Canada has dived into the chat, said we Albertans will never allow communism or liberalism, and has just left. Well done, you did it. Do you have an actual question, dude? I'd love to talk to you. Because, like, first of all, we know, right? Alberta will literally collapse under its own hubris before it allows sense and reason to take hold, right? I'm glad to hear that you're not going to allow liberalism to take hold, though. That makes sense to me as a communist. Adam, good to see you, bud. Today's chat is fucking great. How often do I get to talk about food porn? Really? Yeah, I'm actually... This is my major concern, too, Al, is that there is a bit of... I haven't seen a lot... but then again, I don't tend to visit the same circles I suspect that you do. But it does seem like monkeypox and the gay community, this narrative seems to continue coming together. And so I don't know why that's happening. Like, why is the monkeypox being connected to the gay community? Is it just the fascists trying to create this narrative that, like, gay people are dirty? Is that what they're doing? Right? Again, you would know more than I would on this subject. Why not start at the feet? Are we talking about the chakras for this one? Because the chakra system does deal with legs. It's just the chakras that exist within the legs are considered minor chakras. And same with the chakras that exist within the arms. That those are considered minor chakras, whereas the major chakras are usually what gets the majority of the focus. I fucking cook utensils. I'm pansexual. That's so lame and hilarious, dude. I guess because the feet is a ligament and our true bottom is our buttocks. Yeah, that is the truth. Buttocks. Yep, deprive people of sex. They want to fight. Matthias, just a quick vent. Bosses, CEOs, owners, and shareholders don't actually work. Donald Trump has never actually worked a day in his life. Yeah, absolutely, dude. Like, Pierre Poilievre has never worked a day in his life. He graduated from university, became a Harperite, took his seat in Parliament, and is essentially a landlord. Like, that's it. Demand better. How you doing, bud? Leftist unity is about building solidarity and recognizing the overwhelming power of capitalists. Necessitates alliances. Absolutely, dude. Absolutely. Zionism really is just white supremacy, but this is... Yeah, quiet part. Don't see... Who is Andrew Tate? I'm out of loop. Don't worry about it, dude. Yeah, don't worry about it, Danarchist. He's just a guy that kind of stormed the internet, right? And he'll go away as quickly as he appeared. So if you don't know him, don't bother seeking him out. Yeah, a known human trafficker. He's from Romania. He owns casinos in Romania. Like, he's just a scam artist from start to finish. Yeah, exactly. A guy thinks he can sleep with 500 women. If a woman sleeps with 4 men, she's a hoe. Exactly. Canada will never go communist. Yeah, I think that's probably right, actually, Freedom Canada. Like, Canada is far too white supremacist. It's too imperialist. It won't respond rationally to basic things like climate change, the poverty that's spreading throughout the society, And I mean, it has historically fought hard against communism, right? Like just wrongfully arresting people, like Tim Buck. You can take a look at the history of that. That it's nothing new, right? Like the Jews living in Rome and the Romans did everything they could to kill Christ, right? So people who actually care about truth and freedom and justice and giving people food and shelter and all of those sorts of things, yeah, they get persecuted by imperialist countries. It's nothing new, bud. So we don't expect that Canada will become communist, but we hope that we can create a recovery from the disasters that people like yourself are supporting, right? Connection much better today. I've read comments under your head. Hey, everybody. Hey, Adam. Good to see you, bud. Al Content's a new guy. Nodders. Stumbled upon this incredibly based place. Yeah. Basically why I quit drinking. Well, good for you, bud. If you tell me the secrets of how to quit drinking, because I can't. I can't, man. I do it once a week. That's how I've controlled it in my life. I say, okay, I work capitalism, and then on the last day of capitalism, I'm giving myself permission to have, like, some drinks. And I go to the LCBO and I buy the drinks that I'm going to drink, and I drink those. And that's how I've got it under control. But it's, but it would be nice. It would be nice if I could finally get to the point where there's no alcohol in my life. It's funny how Marx was such an alcoholic that he himself couldn't see how it was working in tangent with capitalism in the factories. Yeah, I mean, Marx isn't a perfect person. Another word for getting drunk is getting blank. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, this is liberalism. Right? These are liberal democracies, right? To me, the true failing of these liberal democracies is this idea that the way to create world peace is to give everybody liberal democracies, right? What we need to do is take our liberal democracy and spread it throughout the world, right? Like, yeah, it's causing problems. It'd be like, man, I really love Taibo. And the best thing that could happen for my neighbor is if I went over to his place and forced him to do Taibo. Like, how effective do you think that's going to be? Capitalism is a pyramid scheme. And because the subconscious dominates, I say free will is probably less than 1%. I know most quantum physicists do not buy superdeterminism, but I have a tough time that we're controlling subatomic particles that make our brains. I mean, yeah, there is this sort of thing, right? And the free will versus determinist conversation is interesting. It is an interesting conversation. I tend to believe that here's the way I'll put it. I think that we put a lot of emphasis on this conversation, free will and versus determinism, when in the end, like, if a grain of sand on the bottom of the ocean declared that it had free will and was convinced of itself that everything that it did and occurred to it was of its own energy, it wouldn't change the fact that when the ocean moves, it will move that grain of sand. So I worry sometimes that people in the free will kind of idea can get a bit self-inflated and a bit delusional about what's happening around them. This idea that, like, they themselves are responsible for manifesting their own destiny, and it's like, yeah, I mean, there's a lot more to it than that. I think there's a lot more going on, right? I think free will exists as a variable, but it's not that important a variable. I think is where I end up. That, like, sure, If you wanted to, you could just jump out the window, right? If you wanted to, like if I wanted to right now, I could just stand up and walk out the door and never come back. If I wanted to, if I just decided to do it, I've got the free will to do these things. If I so decided and I wanted to do it, I just don't think it's that important. Like I just don't think that it's the variable that we should spend all of our time talking about, right? Dr. Squatch Crypto Cleanse. Dr. Squatch. New, very disturbing video leaked of Andrew Tate. Tell me more about this. Can I pay in Soviet rubles? Soap commercial, apple cider. Yeah, eat the commercials. Eat the commercials! Someone's paying for this. Daenerys, also a good character seeking vengeance. Yeah, Casper. Hold on. We're not doing that quite yet. I used to be an investor, bro, libertarian. Now I'm a socialist queer person. Changing your mind is base as fuck. Yeah, dude. Look at cows. They know they're going to die. They don't mind. But you compare that with bears. If you start farming bears, they start killing their young to prevent them from being enslaved. Is that true? I believe it. Bears are super awesome, dude. I fucking think bears are the coolest. I don't know if I agree with the liking death bit. Some of the shit I've seen from just the Donbass war and how people went... Yeah. If anything, fuck the government general. Changing one mind. Ain't daddy more a control title than your actual dad? Third cousin. Now we're getting deep. Good to see you, Victini. The chat's really lively today, so I'm mocked. Good to see you, bud. Russia trying to join NATO and getting denied is one of the craziest things in history, dude. Yeah! So fucking crazy. Europe is inter-imperial conflict, but to maintain it is madness. Like, why not just buddy up? If your goal is to go after China, why? Why would you push Russia away into the hands of the Chinese? It's crazy. It's crazy to me, man. Europe is buying oil from Saudi Arabia, and India imports from Russia. Yeah. And, like, Venezuela now, like, the United States has had to kind of tuck its tail between its legs and be like, hey, Venezuela, can we get some of your oil? Like, it's so fucking stupid. Let's produce porn where in the middle actors look at the camera and say, vote communist, and it ends. Yeah, good thing liberalism will never come to Canada. Liberalism won the free market of ideas like 40 years ago. Yeah. If you're getting some trolls lately, I haven't actually, right? I haven't actually, really. Maybe because there was some pushback on your video I shared on Twitter. Fantastic. Share it. Share it. Share it. I don't care. Let them come in. I've had trolls come in here. It's fine. I know how to deal with them. Like, they want to believe what they want to believe, the crazy, childish nonsense that they want to espouse. They always run away. Like, they always run away. Or they just start revealing that they're a fucking Nazi. Right? Like, that's the only thing that, like, there's only 3 things that ever happen. Right? When a quote-unquote troll comes in. Thing number 1, they change their mind. It does happen. I've seen it. Right? And that's great. That's great. Thing number 2, they reveal that they're a fucking Nazi. Right? So, and they get banned because I have a pretty strict no-Nazi policy. Or 3, they run away like a little baby. Like I assume this Freedom Alberta guy did. Right? Because they can't handle what's going on. Right? Like, most of these liberal conservative types, which conservatism is a form of liberalism, they're just too stupid to know it. It's just cowardice. Like, it's just literally people being like, well, what do you think? Well, what do you think? Oh, that's okay. Like, that's it. Right? And then when somebody stands up and says something to the contrary, they come in and they make a big statement. Like what did this guy say? What did this guy say? What was it was liberalism will never come to Alberta. Communism will never spread into Canada. Right? Like like I give a fuck. Like I give a fuck what this guy says. And then they leave. Because in the end, they don't want to be challenged. They don't want to actually think. Right? They just want to come in to affirm their own beliefs and say, like, yeah, I really told that commie. I told him. Like they're a big man. Like they fucking matter at all. Like, get the fuck out of here. Or stay. I don't give a fuck. free will is constrained and conditioned by previous decisions. Yeah, I think that's exactly it, C.R. Strifey. That, like, you're always operating from a position, right? And the individualist crowd, who align pretty closely with the free will idea, never really want to admit that you're always operating from a position, and that position is what matters more than your operation from it. And we don't want to admit that, like, if you just say to everybody, just do what you want, well, what they're going to do is dismantle the society, right? They're going to because there is no such thing as a society to these people. There's no such thing as a collective idea, right? And many of them demonize the idea of a collective thing. So what do? You dismantle it. And what does that mean? It means that the next iteration of people that come up, right, the next generation, right, they have a worse time of it because you've consumed everything and everything's been dismantled and destroyed. And it's very simple, straightforward shit you can see, right? Like, we should create a mass transit system. There's a very easy collectivist idea that would benefit everybody and be beneficial across the board. Why don't we do it? Because you need a car. Cars are free, right? And so what does that mean? Well, it means that the next generation doesn't get a mass transit system, so they're worse off, right? And then, of course, the whole car thing is coming to an end, so it doesn't fucking work, right? And meanwhile, China is fucking building an enormous mass transit system. Fastest growth in the fucking world, right? And how did they do it? They did it by doing it. That's my favorite part, right? That even if we stood up and said, hey, we should do this, well, you know what the capitalists would do? We know exactly what the capitalists would fucking do, right? So it was suggested that we build a high-speed rail from Toronto to Montreal, right? Well, what happened the moment that was suggested? All this land got bought up by capitalists. So suddenly that land, oh, you want to build a transit on that land? Well, you better pay me $100 billion. So it doesn't happen. Why? Because we don't have the cojones to, like, arrest these people and say to them, get fucked. Or to just take the land and just be like, get fucked. Right? No, we gotta do free market capitalism, because if you don't do free market capitalism, then I'll just take my ball and leave. Yeah, take your ball and leave. Get the fuck out of here. We don't need you. You're a parasite. Meanwhile, China, who doesn't need to deal with that shit, who has an adult population that recognizes that we should act like adults, says, hey, we should have a mass transit system. We should build rail from here to here, and here to here, and here to here, and all over. And so they do, and did. And if a capitalist stood up and said, well, I bought that land, it's my land, the Chinese government would go, it's not your land, it's our land, get fucking out of here. And that'd be the end of it. Because these capitalists are worthless. All right. Ligandies, I'm seeing enough energy. David Lynch. Today's number. All right, guys. Me and Mark, I'm in with the 7 with you, bud. I've been doing 7s this whole time. Here we go. For those of you who are new, pick a number between 1 and 10. Pick a number between 1 and 10. This one's for all the marbles, guys. We need to hit this one. This is what matters. More than anything. We got an 8. We had some numbers up here. 2, 4. Lots of 4s. Lots of 7s. It's going to be a 6 because Al picked it. First time. I've seen it more than once. Lots of 7s, lots of 4s. Oh my god, so many 7s. 2. 2. Somebody did pick a 2. Who was it? Kea. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Yeah, look at it. Whoa. Yeah. Hey, no. We had a winner. We had a winner chicken dinner up here. May the energy of David Lynch carry into your life. May something very odd happen to you that you spend a good deal of time thinking about. to get to the other side and recognize what it was and go, huh. You know, the thing about God is that he's gay. Would you like to explain that? No. Finally got on the David Pakman live stream where he takes callers, and my entire call was about why does he hate the idea for workers to take control of the means of production. Yeah, because he's a simp for capital. That's it. Right? If you just simp for parasites and you actually think that investors are worth something when they're completely worthless, like worse than worthless, they're a negative drain on the society. But if you actually imagine that that an investor actually has value when they don't, then you can pretend as though it's a bad idea. Real straightforward. Real straightforward. And like, when you talk to these simps, especially like Elon Musk simps, right? They really do believe that like these guys are doing something valuable. They really think that people like Musk or Gates or any of this kind of stuff like are super smart alpha entrepreneurs. Like they've just drank the Kool-Aid, like Bezos and all this shit. But when you actually like investigate what it is they actually do, nothing. They don't do fucking anything, right? That if they actually are confronted with needing to do something, well, they'll just pay somebody to do that. That's why CEOs are so well paid, because CEOs are actually organizing stuff. But CEOs even get paid so much that when they're confronted with actually doing work, they just pay someone else to do it, right? This is your trickle down. Right? They're just paying people off down the chain so that they can go golfing or go have sex with kids on Jeffrey Epstein's island or whatever. Right? Like, these people are worse than parasites. Right? We would be better off if they were just parasites. I saw a video, and I mean, and again, somebody like David Pakman, like, yeah, like, he's got all the incentive in the world to suck these guys' cock. Right? It means that he's going to get spread around more. It means that the wealthy are going to take him and put his face in front of people. It means that there's going to be more energy that goes towards him simply by the force of a capitalist being like, oh, this guy's a pro-capitalist. He's sucking my cock. I'll send him here and there and everywhere, right? So he's just like every other liberal. He's simping for power. And somebody like David Pakman, if suddenly there was a shift to the left and everybody went communist, guess what would happen to a guy like David Pakman? You think he's going to plant a flag and be like, no, it's capitalism. We've got to fight the good fight, capitalists. You think he's going to do a big rallying cry and try to actually rally capitalists together to like, no, we've got to fight back against this? No. If the power structure shifted towards communism, so too would David Pakman. Because he's a liberal, right? He has no moral ethos. He doesn't care about anything, right? He cares about power for himself. Where's the power? Well, it's the capitalists. Then the capitalists are what we're gonna jerk those guys off. And if suddenly it wasn't the capitalists, then we'd be jerking those guys off. That's David Pakman. I saw a video of a Uyghur dude, Venf, interviewed about his stools with the U.S. flags on them. Okay, so there's a Uyghur dude who was, he had stools with U.S. flags on them. He said that they have that because China will smash America with the butt? That's so stupid. I love it. I love how stupid that is. That just like, yeah, we put an American flag on the stool so that we can sit on America. That's funny, dude. That's so hilarious. JP needs to get back on the benzos. Yeah. Well, look, I am sympathetic towards Peterson in this one regard, which is that he was diagnosed with schizophrenia, and by all accounts, he refuses to actually medicate for it. Like, I have people in my life who have schizophrenia, and I know what it means. And if they are not medicating for it, that's a problem. And especially as you get older, right? And because when you get older, you start to lose your mental faculties anyway, right? Just because it degrades, right? That's just life. And it's extra worse for people with schizophrenia. So, like, Peterson needs to eat his vegetables, man. He needs to eat his vegetables and take his medicine. Like, it's going to get really obvious. I think that's the thing that his fanboys are not really ready for, is that it's going to get really, really obvious that a lot of his kind of unhinged takes and a lot of what he is because he's an unmedicated schizophrenic, and it's gonna get like, what person in their right mind would have ever done that tweet about the Sports Illustrated model? Like, what in the fuck is that? Like, what in the fuck is that? Right? That's not intelligent. That's not a cultural commentary. It's just mean and rude. And the truth is that he did it because he's schizophrenic. And that's the kind of shit that schizophrenic people do. And when I saw it, and the entire rest of the world's response to it was this, like, baffled, like, all of this kind of stuff. And some people took him seriously about it and, like, tried to comment and, like, had, like, a whole commentary thing. The entire time I was just like, nah, bro. He was, like, in a schizophrenic fugue and was just like, that's not a sexy model. I will not be taught in town by the authoritarian, like... He has schizophrenia. And it's, to me, it's obvious. And it'll get real obvious. And people will start to be like, well, there you go. Right? Like, there you go. Another JP gem. Right? He absolutely hated my line of questioning, says he doesn't want the government to dictate how a business to operate. Because you don't want elected officials to have a say in what's happening. You want an unaccountable, psychotic billionaire to be the one that dictates what happens. Got it. Right? Just some asshole who managed to accrue the wealth. He's the one that gets to decide what happens. Not like people who are in some way responsive to the populace. Got it. Right? Like, this is the funny part about these guys, is that they stand here and say, you want the government to make rules and then have us follow those rules? That's authoritarian. I prefer instead to subserviate myself to this man who's unaccountable to anyone. And in fact, we should ensure that this man has less rules. That a man like Elon Musk should be able to do anything he wants for any reason whatsoever, and if you don't like it, you're an authoritarian. Like, they're crazed. They're crazed. There comes a moment where you just have to look at these guys and be like, okay, little boy, like, okay, little baby brain, eat your cookies and milk and go to bed, okay? Like, they're literally saying out loud in public that if elected officials who are responsive to the populace create rules that we all follow, that's authoritarianism. But removing all rules from the owner of a business that is unresponsive to anyone is not. It's crazed. It's just crazed. And more evidence that Pac-Man is just sitting there jerking off capitalists. Yeah, Elon, yeah, oh, all over my face, Elon, yeah. Like, that's it. That's it. Yeah, he literally bought a company. Yeah, that's all he's ever done. And moreover than that, he bought the rights to be called the inventor, right? Like, that's his real grift. Is that it's one thing to, like, he bought a company, right? Like, the interesting thing about Elon Musk for me is like, I constantly find myself saying, like, why is he doing it? Like, what's the thing motivating him? And I think that he's just doing all of it because he wants his daddy's love. That's all. I think he doesn't get daddy's love ever because his dad is like an apartheid emerald slaver. It's very easy to see that there's a psychopath going on here. And so he never got hugged. He never gets his daddy's love. And so he's doing all of this to convince everybody that he's super smart. When in reality, all I see when I look at Elon Musk is a sad little boy who just never got any acknowledgement. And so he's going to convince the world. He's going to convince the world that he's the smartest man. I'm the smartest man. I'm going to get us to Mars. I'm the smartest man alive. I'm the smartest man alive. Actually, I shouldn't. That's not a good impression of Elon. Elon Musk talk. He talks kind of like this a little bit. I wouldn't be surprised to find out that he's got to be a little bit on the autism chart, just the way he talks about how things go. He's got an accent he's got that South African accent that I don't have. So, but like, if you want to see Elon Musk and recognize that he is a below, like he's a sub-intelligent person, like he's below intelligent, just watch his interview with Joe Rogan. Just watch his interview with Joe Rogan. Like, watch that interview and don't, like, jerk off while watching it. Like the Elon simps do, right? Don't sit there and be like, oh, Elon, you're the greatest, we're getting to the moon, right? And listen to the way he talks and listen to what he talks about and listen to his answers. You'll realize pretty quickly he's just kind of a dumb guy, right? Just failing upwards his whole fucking life. Yeah, at one point he contradicted himself about not using government power, and then give an example why it's a good idea to use government power. Yeah, it's just, wait a second, you didn't want to use government power. Then they cut me off when I asked, why do you think about a mandatory debt wipe? Like, yeah, like, again, because he's just a simp for power, right? Using government power, if it jerks Elon Musk off, is good. Using government power, if it helps the society, is bad. And it's that simple. Like, there's no deeper analysis, right? And if the wind started blowing the other way, David Pakman would suddenly become a communist, right? That's it. Ilona Tusk needed to pull out. Wasn't JP suicidal? Yep. I mean, he was in a coma for a minute. Like, like, there is definitely a part of me that, like, I'm very sympathetic to Peterson as on a human level. Like, I really do think what we are looking at is we're looking at a guy who has an untreated mental illness decline, right? And the thing that makes it extra sad is that he's got this cultish kind of follower group that goes along with him and doesn't want to admit that their daddy hero is kind of just a bit of a lunatic, you know? Like, just a guy who just needs to take his meds. And they don't want to do that because Peterson has been useful to them at some way. Like, some people really do just need the right voice to come in and say to them, stand up! Stand up! Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Get up. Fight back. No one's gonna fight for you if you don't fight for you. You go clean your room, brush your teeth, get a haircut, lose some weight, get out of your house, and do your damn best. You know, some people just need that. I think everybody needs that at some point in their life, right? And Peterson gave that to them. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I gotta tell you, I've said this about Peterson over and over again, that if at the end of the day, if all Jordan Peterson ever was in the society was a dude that was just saying, you know, get out of bed, go buy a new set of clothes, you can do it. You know, if all he really was a cheerleader for people, just saying to them, like, look, life is hard, it's full of suffering, and it's tough. But you gotta do something about it. And you gotta take your own power and get out of bed and clean up your room and get out the door and try your best and fight for the raise and try to go get that job and all that kind of stuff. I would be like, yeah, great, perfect. The trouble is that this guy turns around and does a social critique that is completely inaccurate, right? Like, his ideas of hierarchy and meritocracy are obviously false, like, verifiably false, like childishly false, right? Like, it's obviously not a meritocracy. Like, you got to really be in baby brain town to seriously walk around and be like, yeah, this is a meritocracy. The wealthiest people were born that way. Like, shut up about it. Like, it's embarrassing to say that this is a meritocracy. The wealthiest man in Canada, David Thompson, was born with $1 billion. It's not a meritocracy, right? You got to be really living in baby brain town to say that it's a meritocracy. Peterson's position that the hierarchy is just because lobsters, right, is laughable, and he does get laughed at for it. Even within his own field, he gets laughed at for it. Like, like, again, if he had just been a dude who was just like, you can do it, I think people would really, like, most people would be like, yeah, great. And that's the basis of his fan base, is that people have found him to be helpful, because I think people do find themselves in a position in their life where they need to just get a kick in the pants. You know, they just need that. And most self-help books, that's all they're offering, and that's all they're doing, right? Is that they're just the voice that person needs. And whether it's Oprah, right? Whether it's The Secret, whether it's Jordan Peterson, right? It's the same idea that, you know, life is tough and we're all doing what we can, and sometimes you fall down, and the best thing to do when that happens, it is to get back up and try your damnedest, right? But it's not an analysis, right? It's not answering any big questions. It's not the idea that concept has ruddered itself against, like, the communist analysis of what's going on in the society, shows you that these people are illiterate rubes who have nothing else to offer, right? Like, here is a genuine critical analysis of the material realities that exist in your society. Here is magic. That's what's happened. And it's pretty stunning to watch. Pretty stunning to watch. Currently medicating too, quaffs beer. We're all trying, dude. I had to sit my father down and explain to him that Musk was a total fraud and never discovered or invented anything. Yeah. Like, that's exactly right, though. Like, he's never discovered anything. He never invented anything. Right? All he has done is taken his money and bought his way in. And then convinced politicians to give him a ton of money. Like, if Tesla didn't have the government subsidies that it had, it would collapse immediately. And the only reason why it's valued so heavily is because Elon Musk keeps convincing people that we're gonna do it. We're gonna deliver. We're gonna deliver the self-driving car. We're gonna deliver the rocket that goes to Mars. We're gonna deliver these things. And then anytime you actually analyze his successes, like the fucking tunnel, the boring tunnel, which is an embarrassment. It's just like a fucking embarrassment, that thing. The idea that we're spending that money instead of looking at what China did successfully, obviously, and just doing that, right? Tells you that this guy's a grifter. Like, this guy just wants the most amount of money for the least amount of work. That's all he's doing. And if he can walk up to you and say, hey, we're going to do great things, we're going to build this thing, we're going to do that kind of stuff. Like, what is the difference between Elon Musk and the grifter from the Simpsons episode Monorail? What's the difference? Come in with big promises, right? Deliver something that doesn't work, that doesn't actually do what it wants, pocket the money, and run. The person, in my view, that has done the best takedowns of Elon Musk is Cody Johnson from Some More News. Cody Johnson from Some More News has done the deepest, most excoriating takedowns of Elon Musk that I have seen. And I highly advise, if you are trying to convince people that Elon Musk is a fraud, it's Cody Johnson at Some More News. That's the guy. I don't agree with everything he says, obviously, but some right-wing pundits are even making fun of him now because how we'll see who cancels who. Yeah, dude, like I don't want people to think that I'm a supervillain. We'll see who cancels who. Like, dude, like that's some supervillain shit right there, dude. Like, and it's so, like, on the one hand it's childish, right? It's worthy of us making fun of. But when you actually consider what the history of, like, what's the history of right-wingers and trans people? What's the history there? Right? Like, let's real talk time. Real talk time. Right? What's the history of right-wingers and trans people? Is it right-wingers murdering trans people? Yes, it is. That's the history. Right? The stupidest thing that gets said in the society today in regards to trans people is, there didn't used to be all these trans people around, and now it seems like every other person is trans. It must be the internet. They must be grooming our children. Right? Instead of, yeah, like, within our lifetimes, trans people would just get lynched. Right? That if somebody found out that you're a trans person, they would round up a group and they would beat the shit out of you. Right? So what did trans people do? They didn't present. That they would just present as what they should, like what was expected of them. Right? And the idea that there would be surgery or any of that kind of stuff, forget any of that. Right? Forget any of that. Right? Because if you looked like a man, but you dressed like a woman, you got the shit kicked out of you. And you got lynched. Right? And so the gay community came in and cracked open the society ever so slightly. Right? I know for my rural Manitoban community, Will and Grace was actually like a crack open. Right? And the gay community walked on through, and by and large, right, we've gotten to a place where, like, yeah, gay people, right? There they are, right? And now you've got, like, modern, there's a million examples in media of gay couples and gay people. And at the end of the day, like, we kind of all looked at them and was like, this is what they're harmless. Like, this looks fucking harmless. Like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck? Right? And that crack happened, and then trans people have come up behind it, and they've walked on through. Right? And they've got on the other side. And it's confusing, and it's difficult, because fundamentally, when straight conservatives are confronted with gay people existing, right, and they get through this, well, we can't murder them anymore. They're not letting us just murder them. And then they look at it and they go, oh, in the end, it's just like, you are a man and you want to have sex with another man, but you don't want to have sex with me. And then there's a moment where they go, am I gay? And then they look at a pair of boobs and they go, no, I'm not gay. And you're gay and you want... Okay. Yep. It all makes sense, right? It all connected, right? That in the end, gay people were completely unthreatening to the straights, right? Let's be straight. It's the straight white men that are the problem in the conversation. That the straights got over it. They took a look at gay men, and they went, oh, they're not threatening. They're not a problem. They're not trying to have sex with me. Sure, it meant I had to ask if I'm gay, but I'm not gay. How do I know? Because I love boobs. And that's it. That's it. The conversation, to a degree, ended. Which isn't to say that there aren't still people out there who are like, we gotta get them gays, right? Like, obviously. But the trans people have opened a whole can of worms for these guys. Because trans people, unlike gay people, all gay people have done is force straight people to ask, am I gay? What trans people have done is forced straight white men to ask, what is it to be a man? Oh, fuck. Oh, fuck. Do you think we are ready for that? Do you genuinely think that we are ready to sit and ask ourselves, as a people, what is it to be a man? What is it to be a woman? Fuck no. Fuck no, we're not ready for that. We're nowhere even close to ready for that. Which is why we're getting a huge backlash against the trans community. Why there's this enormous snapback. The whole groomer narrative, right? All of this shit. Because we are not prepared to intrinsically ask ourselves, remembering the hardest thing for a person to do, is fight themselves, ask themselves questions, right? Change themselves. And we are not ready to ask ourselves, what is it to be a man? What is it to be a woman? What do these ideas even have value? Like, we're definitely not there. And I was going to loop this back around to JP, and I forget how I was going to do that. Oh, yeah, right. So, when JP says, we'll see who cancels who, well, sounds like a pretty big fucking threat to me. Sounds like a pretty big fucking threat to me. Right? Shouting that out to a culture that literally used to lynch these people, who are existing for a fleeting moment in an open space that was cracked open by the gay community, sounds to me like a rallying call of straight white men who refuse to self-analyze and who refuse to ask themselves bigger questions about themselves, and would instead like to say, trans people are groomers. Sounds like a pretty big fucking threat to me. Yeah, JP wants to maintain his Sigma Instel Whisperer persona, so he ain't gonna doing no beta medications. Yeah. They said he's gonna do a smash or pass on Daily Wire because of a swimsuit model fiasco. Bro. That's actually a good idea, though. I gotta tell you, that's actually a good idea. Like, Peterson has done this in the past. And he's actually pretty good at it. Which is take the embarrassing moments and spin them and accept. Peterson is actually good at taking insults and then embracing them and then using them as a shield, right? It's like that Tyrion Lannister thing, right? Here, hold on. Before I get into this, ad break. Sorry, guys. I hate to do it. I do. I don't like to do it, but Peterson excels at that Tyrion Lannister idea of using the things they throw at you as a shield, right? That if you use it as a shield, they can never attack you with it. You saw him do this when somebody took his persona and his ideas and turned him into the Red Skull. That there was a Captain America comic series where the Red Skull was basically Jordan Peterson. And what did Peterson do? He took the whole Hydra label and superimposed the lobster on it, and it became Hail Lobster. Instead of Hail Hydra, it became Hail Lobster. And so he used it as a shield to protect himself from it. He's very good at it. And so this idea of him doing a smash or pass on Daily Wire, I think that's a great idea for him. That it would humanize him, it would diffuse a lot of energy. I think a lot of his fans would have a lot of fun with it. And a lot of sort of the liberal types that are still willing to give him a pass, I think would rather enjoy it. So I think that's a great idea for his shtick. Perhaps this Albertan can simply Wexit and do the rest of us a favor. Yeah. I mean, that could happen, man. Like, that's on the table. We'll see. We'll coup who we want to coup, Elon Musk, yeah. For me, that was a huge moment. Like, I genuinely didn't pay that much attention to Elon Musk because I didn't think he was that important. Like, because I don't think he's that important, right? Like, what's he doing? He's just, like, sitting on these stupid companies that aren't doing anything, grifting as much money as he can. But now he's, like, literally saying we'll coup who we want to coup in the open public space. It's like, oh, okay. Ilona Tusk dad had 2 new babies with stepdaughter. Yeah. The rocket needs to be more pointy. Conan's tweet, personally, I think Elon Musk looks pretty tan. Yeah, I got empathy for JP. He reminds me of my mentally ill uncle, yeah. The saddest piece of content I've ever seen was Peterson debating Zizek. Yeah, dude. It wasn't much of a debate, was it? Like, it really wasn't. Like, it was just sort of Peterson revealing that he hasn't read the source material. Like, and what was so sad about that, and he's dropped doing this now. Remember, he used to tell people to read more? He used to do that all the time. Read more! Read more! Right? And then he went to this debate and showed the entire fucking world that he hadn't read the source material. Like, and Zizek gave him the, like, gentlest pat on the head. Like, I love how he thinks that equality is cultural Marxism. Yeah, like, fucking... David Thompson also has a lot of kids. He spends a lot of time in London, England. Yeah. Keck W. His PayPal code got redone after they found investors. Stephen Crowder, Jordan Peterson, Lawrence Southern, Stephen Molyneux, and Paul Frum are all Canadians. Yeah. There's a shameful list of our embarrassments, right? There's really good QAnon Anonymous episode about Elon Musk being a fraud. Fantastic. You see the Behind the Bastards take on Musk? I have not. He's not as funny as that episode was. He's funny, just not ha-ha funny. Can you share the link? The link of what? Sorry, dude. It's all the trans porn we're watching, right? Yeah, we can't stop it. We can't stop. My favorite person who debunked Elon Musk is Thunderfoot. They still get beaten up and killed every day. Yeah, absolutely, right? Absolutely, that's the case. But God said being gay bad. Yeah, right. Like literally, like, capitalism will let gay people in, but they won't let trans people in because then it questions the patriarch and the role you're being told to play since you were born. Yeah. Cis-het white men are the biggest threat to safe society. I mean, yeah. Like, this fundamentalist idea that you're a man and a man's man is a man's man, right? Like, it's just showing you how snowflakey all these guys actually are. Like, all these guys walking around saying you're snowflakes and all this kind of stuff. Like, who's more snowflakey than a straight man who wants to beat up a transgendered person? Like, no one is more snowflakey than this. YouTube. Some more news. Elon Musk. I'll just share this because, like, all those videos are good. Cody Johnson does a really good job of capturing the manic insanity of the day and of the age. He's always extremely well researched. He came from Cracked, I believe, is where he got his start as a comedy writer. Yeah, it's very, very good. Very, very good. I'm not a huge fan of his imperialist takes, right? Like, he does pretty good in every department except foreign policy. He doesn't think that the American empire is an empire. That I think is the fundamental truth about Johnson. And if he does think that way, he certainly doesn't move in that direction. Like, in many ways, it's the critique I have for Jon Stewart and that crowd, was that as long as what they were saying was domestic, they could say what they liked. But the second they stepped into the foreign policy arena, they basically became imperialists. You're talking nothing but facts right now, sir. Yeah, thanks. I try, dude. I try. God help me, I try. On monkeypox, they are claiming that monkeypox is an STI. Yeah, that's not true. They are saying it's predominantly in the gay community because they are only testing in the gay community. There you go, dude. There you go. Yeah, so they're trying to turn it into a, like, God is smiting the gay people, right? It's okay to destroy gay people because God is destroying them, right? As the Christian theocracy takes over, those sorts of narratives are going to become very prominent, which is why I say over and over again, read your Bible. Read your Bible. Quite seriously, right? The Bible is going to become the only acceptable language of the powerful. This is the only language that they will speak, and it's the only language that they will respect. That if you come at them with facts, science, logic, reason, any of that kind of shit, they're just going to roll their eyes, say fake news, none of that. If you're quoting scripture, they can't say anything to you. They can't say anything to you. Because you've got their book in your hands. It's like Marjorie Taylor Greene, right? She said this: I'm being attacked by the godless left. Hi. That would be me. Because I said I'm a proud Christian nationalist. These evil people are even calling me a Nazi because I proudly love my country and my God. The left has shown us exactly who they are. They hate America, they hate God, and they hate us. This is the only language that they will speak. This is the only way to communicate with them. Read your Bible. Read it. And like, I go so far as to say, like, you don't need to read the whole, like, they don't. Like, this is the important thing to remember. They don't read this thing. They don't care about it, right? They don't care about reading this thing. They're illiterate. So if all you do is read Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John, right? Pick one of those four and read those books, one of those books, you're going to be better equipped than them in big ways, big and serious ways, because they don't even read the book, right? I suggest Luke, because Luke is just the facts, ma'am, right? Luke was the historian. Luke was the guy that was just like going out and being like, hey, there's this story going on. Can you tell me about the story? Just the facts, ma'am, right? And he got it, right? I say this all the time. Matthew is a diary. That's how it reads. It's got the best speeches. The Sermon on the Mount is in Matthew. Mark is campfire stories told by Peter to Mark. And Luke is the historian. And then John is the disciple that Jesus loved. So it's a love story. Smells holy. And like Ecclesiastes is one of the most powerful, documents ever written, in my view. The story of Job is incredibly prescient for today's environment. The Song of Solomon is just like some good porn, right? Straight up. How do you get my Discord? You donate $1 to my Patreon. You can find that in the description. I'll contend. If you donate a single dollar to my Patreon, you get into the Discord. If you'd like to donate more than $1, that would be nice. I also give people access to some of my music and music I'm producing. I haven't even played any music for you today. Ephesians is good. And then if you donate a lot, I have written some scripts and stuff that I share with people as well. I actually strongly believe that the Jafar script I wrote, if Disney ever did it, it would be amazing. They would make $1 billion and it would actually help the world. I actually believe that's the truth. You know? I like, one of the things that I despise about Disney these days is that they're not actually interested in art anymore. They're just doing it for the money. And when they when they do sequels or retellings of stories, it's all revisionist bullshit. And for whatever reason, I wanted to write a story about the Disney character Jafar that was a redemption arc for the character that was completely non-revisionist. That it accepted who he is and sent him through this mystical journey, because he's a genie, right? Sent him through a mystical journey through time and space, where he essentially, in the end, attains enlightenment, which I think is beautiful. I think Jon Stewart quit because he didn't want to be in a position where he'd have to promote Clinton. Just a thought. Maybe. I mean, there's also, like, he's old, right? Like, you get old, you get tired, right? You don't want to do it anymore, you know? And, all right, I am going to play a tune. What tune? Yeah, let's do that one. Ooh, that is out of tune. This is the quality content you guys sign up for. Yeah, okay. If you say so, CR. Got asked a question by my niece who's 5 years old. What's the world gonna be like when I'm grown? I looked up at the crimson smoke-filled sky. I thought, what's the harm in telling one more lie? I said, everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? The burning sun won't leave a paper trail. Why work so hard if it's too big to fail? And what's the point in feeding this machine if it won't make the world in our dreams, where everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets? You never need to worry if you're gonna get to eat. And Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice? And I know one day my maker I will meet, when death's sweet kiss comes to sweep me off my feet. I hope by then we've learned a little more. I'd like this place to be better than before, so everybody's safe, no one's living in never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice, and everybody's happy, and wouldn't that be nice when everybody's safe, no one's living in the streets. You never need to worry if you're gonna get to Eden. Antarctica is covered in ice. Antarctica is covered in And you know I say it every time I play that song. I still believe that we can do it. I will always believe that we can do it. Because the earth wants us to do it. The earth made a garden. Before we were even here, it made a beautiful garden for us. And it created us in that garden, to live in that garden. We don't need to make anything. We don't need to create anything. The earth is more than capable of healing itself. And it's more than capable of removing the problem. So if we want to be here to witness the absolute miracle that will be the earth healing itself, all we have to do is stop. Thank you, Alcontent. I appreciate that, bud. I'll send you the code at the end of the show, okay? Bless your heart. Bless your heart. You know, I'm going to play this one. We've been talking a lot about trans issues, so this is a good song for this. I genuinely feel that if Willie Nelson were to play this song at the Grand Ole Opry, it could heal America. So that's my goal. I was just a little boy when my mom and dad divorced. Through my tantrums, cried my tears, I'd keep their vows by force. Now that I'm an older man, I see it had to be this way. My love for them, it keeps on growing each and every day. And time passed me by so swiftly, I could have been a better man. And every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can. And though they're not the people I expected they would be, well, I love them all the same. I just want them to be free. "10 years, me and my wife, we traveled round the globe. Sacred vows and shared regrets, they filled our lives with hope. Then one day she tells me that a man is not for her. Those 10 years are a memory now, but my love for her still stirs, and time passed me by so swiftly, I could have been a better man. And every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can, and though she's not the person I expected she would be, well, I love her all the same. I just want her to be free. Well, my love had a little girl, a scrappy tomboy type. I watched her blossom like a flower, but she felt not quite right. Then one day she tells me she's a young man, not a girl. I picked her up and held her close, then sent my son into the world. And time passed me by so swiftly, I could have been a better man. And every day I'm trying to do the best things that I can, and though he's not the person I expected he would be, well, I love him all the same. I just want him to be free. And though they're not the people that I expected they would be, I love them all the same. I just want them to be free. Do you like Ron Sexsmith, John? I like his name. I haven't listened to a lot of Ron Sexsmith. So I don't know. Should I, Sierra Strifey? Do you think I would like him? Yeah, let's do the rapid fire. The rapid fire is just me going through the headlines and just shitting on them, basically. We've got a half hour. I got to remember to capo that song. That was too low, that one. All right, here we go. Western armed aggression, crippling economic sanctions, covert operations inciting unrest and disorder, non-stop CIA propaganda. Communism doesn't work. Classic. Yeah, we already went through this one. Blackstone CEO Jonathan Gray says rental, housing, and logistics are two of the best sectors in the entire economy. Rents will continue to rise. Psychopath. Was that my song? That was my song, I'll contend. Both of those songs were my songs. I only play originals on the channel because they demonetize my channel if I don't. So, yes, thank you. I'm a genius. I know. Thank you. Oh, this is my absolute fucking favorite. Aussies must compete with $2 a day workers. Reinhardt. This is the richest woman in Australia. Every time she comes out of whatever fucking sewer she lives in, this fucking Jabba the Hutt looking dumb bitch, she literally says some just disgusting, disgraceful, inhuman bullshit. Right? Like, it's unbelievable to me that people still defend capitalism while there are just these overt, obvious, terrorizing sociopaths that live in the society saying, if Australians need to work for $2 a day to compete, get totally fucked forever, right? We're planting trees, finally. Yeah, I wonder what her views of Chinese people are. Yeah, exactly. Look at these. You got it. Time to nationalize Canadian Telecom, right? My only critique for these, like, I'm glad that this is getting published. Like, let's get it. Yeah, we should nationalize these telecoms for sure. We should, right? And the better question to ask though, right? I hate these articles because they're all just like, But at least this guy's concluding with something. What political leader would be prepared to initiate a forced buyout and restructuring of Canadian telecom companies? Probably no one in my lifetime, but I can dream, can't I? Right? So it's time for us to start asking why it's not happening. And why don't they actually ask why it's not happening? Because the answer is right in front of your face. These politicians are bought, right? Right? More families are choosing multi-generational living amid Canada's housing crisis. The word choosing is doing a lot of lifting in that sentence, don't you feel? Right? That's the reason I wanted to share this, because I saw more families are choosing multinational living. Isn't that a cute word there? Where they're saying like, oh, it's just a choice, right? They're just living together as a family because they want to. It's a choice. It's all just a choice. These are just choices. It's like the same people who say that like capitalism is a voluntary system. Capitalism is voluntary. Yeah, you've got the choice to go and starve. That's right. Right? That's fucking right. The Montreal Gazette is kind of based. I mean, it's the French. It's the French attitude, right? Like if you go to France, like the French actually have like social programs and shit. And when the politicians attack them, they burn their cars down, right? So they act properly. All while spitting out children. This one fucking broke my heart, dude. And it is really a case in point of like how far behind we are as like a people. She's been growing a garden for monarch butterflies for 2 decades. So why did the city mow it down? Susan McKee returned from her summer vacation earlier this month only to discover that her naturalized pollinator garden, once filled with endangered monarch butterflies and bees, was gone. It's all chopped down. Everything just chopped to the ground, said McKee, who has lived in her Biscoe Street West home in London, Ontario for nearly 20 years. McKee said neighbors told her they saw city staff cutting down the plants and weed whackers after someone had filed a complaint. I was in shock, said McKee. I put lots of time and love into this garden, and just to have it chopped down for no reason other than a neighbor complaint is just devastating. She also received a $125 bylaw ticket last week. Her garden, once filled with more than 20 varieties of plants, including milkweed, periwinkle, chicory, and wild rose, was quite high, she said. It covered her front yard and the boulevard. More than 30 milkweed stems were cut down. The plant is known for hosting monarch caterpillars. Just last week, scientists with the International Union for the Conservation of Nature added monarch butterflies to the global endangered species list, due to dwindling numbers. The monarch butterfly had already been designated endangered in Canada by the Committee on the Status of Endangered Wildlife in 2016. I think it's a small part I can do, she said of her long-loved garden. The butterflies are going extinct, and I can maintain these here. I can take care of them. I can keep them healthy. If I can do my little part of saving the bees and helping the butterflies, then this is what I'm doing, and it looks beautiful. It's a win-win situation. While she was on vacation, some neighbors collected caterpillar eggs on milkweed leaves from the garden and have been taking care of them a few doors down. Serenity, an 8-year-old from the neighborhood, stops by to check on them a few times a week. Now they're in cocoons, and soon they're going to be butterflies, she said. It's really cool being able to hold them. Serenity's mom, Jillian Smith, who has lived in the neighborhood her entire life, said it broke her heart when the garden was cut down. I think her garden has been amazing. There's always different wildflowers. You see all different kinds of butterflies and little bees and flowers, she said. Her 3 children love to go and pick wildflowers, but she had heard other neighbors complain it was overgrown. It wasn't the first time a neighbor had called in a complaint about McKee's garden. Last year, McKee was issued another ticket from city bylaw after a neighbor complained. It was later dropped after she explained it was a pollinator garden, said McKee. City of London officials say perennial gardens are managed under the Weed Control Act. After a bylaw complaint is made, the city says, the property owner should be notified. McKee said she didn't find a notice in her mailbox when she returned from vacation. Keith Hobson, a professor in the Department of Biology at Western University, believes pollinator gardens shouldn't be removed. Communities need to start thinking more broadly about biodiversity in their communities, and bylaws need to catch up, he said. I think the public are way ahead of the government in this respect, and that is that we cherish and recognize the importance of insects and pollinators and birds of all kinds of critters. But there that we enjoy London, he said. Monarch butterflies are suffering and insects are declining in huge numbers, said Hobson. People who plant flowers for pollen and nectar are making a great contribution. Like, to me, this is such a small story, right? This is such a small story. But to me, it's indicative of how backwards we are as a people. That literally somebody calls and complains, and the city's response is essentially nuclear. This woman's been working on this garden for 20 years. For 20 years. And because one asshole, because one person calls and complains, they just come in with the tools and shave it all down while she's away, no less. While she's away, no less. We live in a backwards society. The things that we value are inverted, that we have prioritized ahead of anything else. We have prioritized a worship of wealth and money. And we treat the natural world as if it is just an object to be destroyed. Shameful. We're a shameful people. And we're going to pay for it. We're going to pay for it. In big and serious ways. And no amount of money is going to be able to fix it. Yep. Oh well. Yeah, brace for 3 more rate hikes this year, says BMO chief economist. Here comes that recession we've been talking about. The OECD has said that Canada is going to face the worst recession amongst what they call the developed nations. And it's 100% because we don't really have an economy anymore. Right? Like, we don't make anything, we don't create anything, we don't generate anything, and our currency is going to be devalued completely. Right? And it's because we're a backwards people who have allowed a group of psychopaths to extract all of our productivity out of us, and then are turning around and abandoning us. So the recession that Canada is about to go through is going to be ruthless. And I'm seeing it in my own work. Right? People just don't come. And why? Because they have no money. Right? It's real straightforward. They have no money. Like, if people have no money, they can't buy anything. If people can't buy anything, there is no economy. And again, we live in this inverted space where we have said that, oh, what matters in the economy is the amount of wealth that one person has, because then it trickles down into the economy. Well, no. People are your economy. Your economy is people. If you don't have people, you don't have an economy. And the West is starting to realize that populations like China that has 1.4 billion people and India that has another 1.4 billion people are just going to overwhelm the West sheerly because of population. And because China, at the very least, understands that a strong, educated, robust, in control people are better than this oligarchic dumb bullshit that can't be sustained and eventually collapses. Only 50% honeybees in so-called Canada survive the winter, but I recall environment saying honeybees are invasive here, so yeah. I used to be a beekeeper. I did a year of beekeeping out east. Bees are an absolute gift to us. An absolute gift. literally just like they go around and they pollinate. They just pollinate everything. They make gardens better. They make fruit-bearing trees better. Bees in any environment can increase. Here's a great this is a great story for how our economy is a failure, and the way we think about things is a total failure. So when I went out east, it was in the wake of a recent discovery. Blueberry farmers had figured out how to increase their crop yield by a factor of 10. That they could get 10 times the amount of blueberries out of a blueberry patch with selective pollinating, right? That if you put bees on your property in the proper area at the proper time, you could increase the amount of blueberries, the same amount of blueberry plants could produce, by 10 times. And so all of these blueberry farmers lost their minds, and they were like, oh man, we gotta do it! We got to do it. Get all the pollinators. Oh my God. Yeah, we got it. And they did it. They got 10 times the amount of blueberries. Well, what happened? The demand hadn't gone up for blueberries, right? That the amount of people consuming blueberries stayed the same. And so what did it do? It crashed and cratered the price of blueberries. And I talked to farmers out east who actually lost money doing this because the price of blueberries collapsed so badly. They got less money. They didn't lose money, but they got less money than they would have. Right? And so here's an example of your free market capitalist system incentivizing people to produce less. Because if you produce too much, you make less money. It's less beneficial for you. It's an insane system that doesn't make any sense at all. We still need them as pollinators, though. They're invasive species, but we legit need them. And to and forget the pollen. So they pollinate everything, and then they make honey. They literally make more honey than they can consume. Right? And honey is a wonder food. It's absolutely brilliant. And I've been trying my ass off to get a hive here in the city. But what happens? There's always somebody being like, I don't want bees around. I don't want bees around. Because we're babies. We're just childish babies who don't want to deal with the fact that nature exists. Yeah, life expectancy overtook the U.S. with only 17% wealth per person. Yeah. Honeybees were said to be like one of the only good thing white man brought to America. Yeah. Reverse commodity fetishism. Yeah. It's just brutal. We're an inverted people. Here's a piece of evidence showing that we've known about climate change since August 14th, 1912. Science notes in news, right? Coal consumption affecting climate. The furnaces of the world are now burning about 2 billion tons of coal a year. When this is burned, uniting with oxygen, it adds about 7 billion tons of carbon dioxide to the atmosphere yearly. This tends to make the air a more effective blanket for the Earth and to raise its temperature. The effect may be considerable in a few centuries. Like, I'm beating myself up. I should have said to David Packman that should we have simply reformed slavery? After all, slavery required an authoritarian act to have it abolished. Yeah, I feel like that's a pretty effective argument for... The trouble with that is that capitalists they like to pretend like they're not still using slavery, right? That's how you get this argument of, capitalism spread more prosperity than any other system. As long as you ignore the slavery and the slaves and the genocide and the overt theft of land and resources, not only from the territory that we live in, but also in South America, Africa, the Middle East, throughout Europe, right? As long as you ignore all that, this is the most prosperous system the world has ever seen, right? As long as you don't care about the fate of like any other population than the white population, then yeah, you're right. Government of Saskatchewan and Alberta disappointed in federal target for fertilizer emission reduction. Right? I'm happy we're trying to reduce emissions. We should do it by nationalizing the fossil fuel industry. That's authoritarian. You want to do rules and follow those rules? More psychopath shit. A top financial advisor says the notion of retirement is gone. Here's what he thinks people will do instead. The notion that you're born, go to school, get a job, retire, that's gone. You're not going to do that anymore. Life expectancy is likely going to be extended dramatically, even though it's going down, meaning you'll very well live to 110 or 20. The notion of retiring at 65 and living 120, there's no way you're going to be able to afford a life of leisure for 50 or 60 years, we say, because you're not going to do that, because we've structured a society that doesn't permit that. The notion of retirement is gone. This was a 20th century innovation. It didn't exist in the 19th century because we had serfs, this fucking psycho. It's not going to exist in the 21st century. You're going to work until you're 75, 85, 95, 105. And don't worry about it. It's not as horrific as it sounds because you're going to want to do that. You're going to want to work for two reasons. Number one, you're going to be healthy enough to do it. For us to exploit your labor until you die. This fucking worthless parasite. You're going to be as healthy as the age 100 as you are at the age 40 and 50, and that means you're going to want to remain viable and participant in the economy and be a community, to be a valued member of the community as an exploited serf. Second, it's going to be easier than ever to make money thanks to the gig economy. The notion of part-time work, working through the internet. This guy's basically just like pro-slavery, right? That's what this is. Like, this guy is basically making an argument for extending slavery into your old age. It's going to be fun. It's going to be enjoyable. It's going to be beneficial for the community as well. What's not to love? Keep working while I walk away. Right? While I walk away. This guy's a financial advisor. He's a worthless parasite. He does nothing of value whatsoever. Telling you to work your life away so that he can continue being a worthless parasite. They're just saying it now. Right? They're just openly stating that they're psychopaths and they don't care. And that you should just love to work for them while they take the full value of yours, the surplus value of your labor for themselves. That's who these people are. This system is dead. It will never reform itself. Canada is one of the biggest greenhouse gas producers in the world, yeah? It's so bad that when Trudeau went to Europe to talk about it, they literally told him to fuck off. They literally told him, fuck off. Fertilizer is going up in price, so farmers are moving to alternatives. Yeah, whole story's a con job. We'll be put in suicide pods before that. Yeah, I think you're onto something there, Major. Yep, rent spike as big pocket investors buy mobile home parks. We don't trust you. Whether it's Rogers or the RCMP facing questions, the Liberals are in the hot seat. This is just an article getting the public ready for Conservatives to come in. That's all. Right? Like, oh, those Liberals, what we should do is vote Conservative. They fought a rent increase and won, then received an eviction notice. Yeah, no shit. No shit. I love this article, dude. Governments insist it will meet its 2030 emissions target despite extension for oil and gas sector. We're definitely going to make our emissions target, even though the emitters are going to continue emitting. Emitters can keep emitting pollution. We're definitely going to make our targets, though. 1 + 1 = potato. Right? Like, these people are frauds. Like, when are we going to wake up and actually recognize that these liberals are complete and total frauds? That their grift is actually more evil than the conservatives, right? At least the conservatives are not lying, right? The conservatives are saying, oh yeah, climate change, well, we'll take that kind of seriously, I guess. Yeah. Right? At least they're saying that. The liberals are going, climate change is a serious issue. We gotta do this. We gotta make sure that we take care of while actively betraying the public. I'll say it over and over and over and over again until the day I die. The Harper government was better on the environment than the Trudeau government. The Harper government is better for the environment than the Trudeau government. Harper government didn't buy pipelines. Harper government wasn't fighting wet'suwet'en people on their own territory to push pipelines through. Harper didn't subsidize the fossil fuel industry. The fossil fuel industry hated Harper for this, right? It's a big reason why they abandoned him and flipped over to the Liberals. Because he actually believed in his free market principles, right? When the fossil fuel industry had handout to Harper, he said, wait a minute, isn't this all free market? You guys can't make it work. You're supposed to fail. That's the point, isn't it? That's what you've been saying this whole time, isn't it? And so he didn't give them any bailouts. He didn't give them any subsidies. And then they get the Trudeau administration in. What's the Trudeau administration doing? Buying pipelines, giving them massive handouts and bailouts, right? Pretending like they care about fossil fuel while doing this bullshit. The Trudeau Liberals have been far more catastrophic than the Harper Conservatives. Because at least the Harper Conservatives would have stood by and allowed the fossil fuel industry to collapse. While the solar and wind industry, like solar and wind is cheaper right now. It's cheaper. It's cheaper to go with solar and wind right now. Lots of places in the world are starting to install lithium batteries and things like this because it's cheaper. Well, then how come the fossil fuel industry is lurching around? If this is cheaper, why aren't we transitioning faster? Why isn't it happening? Because we're giving them billions of dollars in this completely overtly fascist act. Like, let them fail. Let them fail. I'll laugh as they fail. These fucking psychos. I actually think these guys should be arrested. Like, the fossil fuel industry, all of the executives, all of the investors, all of these guys should be arrested and incarcerated as traitorous, treasonous psychopaths. Worse than the Nazis. Because even the Nazis weren't trying to destroy the species. Yves Engler went and protested the guy, and he announced this and got thrown out. Oh yeah, he's an anti-Semite, yeah. No, that's the smear, right? If you stand up and say, hey, Zionists are like Nazis, you're an anti-Semite, even though it's completely accurate. Canada's housing investors are heading for the exits as rates rise. Good, get the fuck out. Get the fuck out. Like, get the fuck out. I don't know what to tell you. Like, these investors are worthless parasites. They provide no value whatsoever. And they're turning our housing into a commodity. They should be chased out of the market. And into prison cells, if you ask me. But, you know, that's authoritarian. It's authoritarian to have rules and expect people to follow them. And if people break those rules, punishing them, oh, that's authoritarian. That's authoritarian. Like, fucking baby brain dumb shit. Well, that's it. We did it. We did it. We're at the end. Here we are. This was a great one for me today, guys. I really love this. We got a new Patreon today, Al Content. Glad to have you, bud. And really lively chat today. Always love it when the chat is lively like that. What a fun one. What a fun one. I'm going to close down a couple of minutes early because I got to go pee. All right, guys. Always remember, you are a quantum being walking around in quantum energy. The billionaires are spending hundreds of billions of dollars in the hopes that you'll never realize it. You'll just stay the good little commodity that they need you to be. Revolt. Rebel. Repent. Good luck. We're going to need it.